warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Mrs. Uma Mahadevan, IAS, Principal Secretary, Panchayati Raj, Government of India, to this auspicious occasion. Ma'am, we welcome you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And I also extend a heartfelt welcome to Mr. Shrisha Bhatt, Managing Director of Akanksha Charitable Trust, who has been the foundation of Akanksha. Welcome you, sir. It's my pleasure to welcome all the delegates without whom this event will not be making justice to. I welcome all the delegates. I would also welcome all the other guests present with us virtually, and I extend my welcome to all the spectators who's watching us live on YouTube. Last but not the least, I would like to welcome my family, my people, the advisory board, the members and the volunteers of Akanksha Charitable Trust to this occasion. Welcome you all. Without wasting much time, we shall now proceed to our first session by Mrs. Uma Mahadevan, ma'am. And I would like to give a brief introduction about ma'am. Srimati Uma Mahadevan, IAS, has assumed charge as Principal Secretary, Panchayat Raj in Rural Development, Panchayat Raj Department, Government of Karnataka. She is a 1992 batch IAS officer and served in various capacities in central and state. Prominent amongst them are Principal Secretary in Department of Agriculture, Education, Health and Family Welfare, Women and Child Development Department. She has also served in Department of Atomic Energy, Government of India, and Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, prepared the Human Development Report. She's an author and she has published several articles on social issues. As Principal Secretary, guiding the 3-tier Panchayat Raj institutions in overall development of rural areas in Karnataka state. On behalf of Akanksha Charitable Trust, I welcome you, ma'am. We are very eager to listen to you, to your talks this evening.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that introduction.
Ma'am, the session is over to you.
Okay. Thank you so much. I'd like to begin by wishing you all a very good evening. It's a pleasure to be here with a group of young people who are so committed to doing good. That itself is a great start. The right attitude and the right commitment is absolutely the place to begin. The rest of it can fall into place later. So when Dr. Shrisha Bhatt invited me to give the keynote address at this conference, it was a great pleasure to accept, and I'm happy that I could. I was traveling this week, but I'm happy that I could be back in time to participate. I'm very happy to be here. What I really want to say is going to be very, very simple. I'm not a great speaker, and I don't have anything very profound to say. However, what I always tell young people when I meet and interact with them, or when I speak in events like this, is that the first thing we need to remember is, in the words of Toni Morrison, the Nobel laureate, if we have any power at all, if we have any privilege at all, it's not meant only for us. It's not meant only for us to enjoy our power or our privilege. It's not a grab bag candy game. It's for us to pass on to those who don't have power or don't have that privilege, and to ensure that we, in our turn, manage to empower somebody else who's weaker than us, or pass on the privilege to somebody who's less privileged than us. And that's one of the great things that we need to remember in whatever kind of public service we decide to do, whether it's public service in terms of, can you hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
But video is not.
Okay, there's some fluctuation over here. Okay, so whether it's public service in terms of joining the civil services, or whether it's public service in terms of entering political life, whether it's public service in terms of, and those are not the only kinds of public service that we can do in life. What we need to remember in a country like India is that those of us who are fortunate enough to have any kind of privilege, just to give you an example, the privilege to be on a connection and on a call like this, to be able to talk to each other across the boundaries of location, across the boundaries of continents, and to be able to connect. That itself is a tremendous privilege. And therefore, the first step that we need to do is to remember that the privilege is ours in order to help somebody else. That's the first responsibility for all of us. And once we have that recognition, it then becomes the natural question to ask, what should be the way in which we can give back to society? What should be the way in which we can empower another person or help those who are less privileged than us? And how can we amplify their voices? So this is where we need to remember that working for good, working for public good, is not only the preserve of those of us who are in the civil services or those of us who are in any form of political life. Working for public good is something that each one of us can do every day at any point in our life. And this is something that we all came together to realize last year during COVID. And that brings me to the topic of this year's conference itself, turning crisis into an opportunity, as I would say, to do something good. Last year, during COVID, we saw that it was not only the administration and it was not only those of us in public life, but all of us together as a society who came together in order to fight the pandemic. And that was the only way that we could fight it. All of us who came together, whether it was the healthcare community, whether it was the teaching community, whether it was the private sector, whether it was the administration, the police, also, most importantly, non-governmental organizations, non-profits, civil society organizations, and just groups of people who were most committed and wanted to do something. To give you an example, I was part of a team in Karnataka that worked to coordinate the response, COVID response, with NGOs, with civil society organizations, with the private sector and international organizations. And the response of people during COVID to a phone call was amazing. To a phone call, to a simple WhatsApp message, it would move around like electricity. It would move around at the speed of light. And people would come forward day and night, responding to our call, coming forward to help at any time of the day and at any location in the city or in the state. And that's the kind of response that has helped us over the year to fight the pandemic, not only the pandemic, but also to fight the hardship that the pandemic has caused to those of us who are the weakest and most underprivileged among us. And this, I think, is a time now that the darkest hours are behind us. And I think some sign of light, the vaccines are here, vaccination has started, the frontline workers and the healthcare workers have been, by and large, getting vaccinated. Now the elderly among us, the vulnerable, are going to be vaccinated soon. At this time, I think it's a good time for us to think over, in retrospect, before we forget all of it, how this response came about from everybody in society. How did all of us together work together across social media, across, sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am, yes.
Yes.
Okay. There was a disturbance. I'm on a very poor connection. So I think this is a time when we can all think and introspect about what were the things that made us come together. What was it that worked when we came together to coordinate the COVID response? One of the things I think was that none of us stopped to think about hierarchy. Nobody cared about hierarchy. It was a totally flat organization of interested individuals, non-profit organizations, private sector, international organizations, everybody communicating in the fastest way possible on WhatsApp, sharing information, sharing phone numbers, connecting with a view not to talk about hierarchy or protocol, but directly to solve the problem. And I think that razor sharp focus on solving the problem, Okay, have we got a call for rations from X place in Karnataka where there are some migrant laborers who are held up and who are not able to communicate, who need some help? Okay, within hours, within 3 hours, we will be able to get rations across to them. We will be able to get help across to them. Are there any laborers from Karnataka who are stuck in another state? Overnight, we will be able to locate through the system and through informal network how we can get them till the Karnataka border and then help them to go home. So these were the kind of ways in which the community, different sections of the community, was coming together to solve problems. Do we need to help people to access testing in their locations? Do we need to help people to access emergency drugs in their locations? Fine, we will find volunteers who can go and deliver those drugs to them. So this was the way in which civil society, private sector, all of us, do we need to build a platform that can coordinate disaster response better? Fine. So we had a startup, a wonderful pair of startup energetic developers from a startup. We had an organization, Triple IT. We had wonderful help from SAP Labs. And we had others working with us on creating this technology platform. We had nonprofits, we had Whitefield Rising, we had n number of people. And that's the kind of unselfish, I would not even say unselfish, it is completely selfless response, which says that it doesn't matter who I am, it doesn't matter who you are, we need to help solve a problem. And that's the kind of focus that we'll bring. We'll talk about everything else later, if at all we have to talk about it. I'm wondering whether we can bring the same kind of focus to solving our other problems in India. For example, the problem of learning loss among children. Children who are returning to schools after a year of school being closed, year of college being closed. Children in rural areas who don't have the kind of benefits and privilege that we have in urban areas. Children who children who don't have the kind of benefits, who don't have access to the kind of libraries, to the kind of infrastructure that we have in urban areas or in privileged families. So one of the things that we did in our department in rural development and Panchayat Raj was when we found that schools were closed and Anganwadis were closed, colleges were closed, and there was a lot of anxiety among parents and children about learning loss. And education department came up with a wonderful program of neighborhood school, neighborhood learning centers, Vatara Shale, a program called Vidyagama. We thought about how we could help. And what we came up with was an interesting idea that we have 5,600 rural libraries, 5,622 rural libraries in Karnataka, and these are run for 4 hours a day. Now, we asked ourselves, why can't we open up these libraries to all children? There's a small little refundable deposit, but why can't we, as a special case in the COVID year, why can't we make that library membership completely free for all children between the age of 6 and 18? Enroll all of them compulsorily so that each of them gets a membership card. Revitalize these libraries with a children's section in each of the libraries. Ensure that there are children's books in Kannada, in English, dictionary in Kannada to English, map, atlas, all the things that are basic for children to learn and read about the world, as well as systems, desktops, computers with a modem and an internet connection, in order to let the children, let the students, young people access the state digital library, which is completely free. If we do this, and if we revitalize the libraries, we will be able to support the children's education even beyond school hours, so that the children can catch up with their learning loss and cope up with the pressures of academic life in their futures. So this is a program that we devised called Oduwa Belaku. And what we did was, although we have 5,622 libraries with librarians, we said that this is not something we can do alone. This is not something that education department can do alone or RDPR department can do alone. We need to tap into the community itself. We need to tap into the elected members, the Gram Panchayats, the Panchayat staff, the elected representatives, as well as all the community workers, the Anganwadi worker, the supervisor, the SDMC chairpersons, all the different stakeholders, the principals of schools, the librarians, the village rehabilitation worker who works with children with special needs. And most importantly, we need to tap into all the nonprofits and NGOs that can work with us in order to help children to catch up with their learning and not feel the sense of anxiety and stress that many children were already feeling about the pandemic and about losing a year of their education. So I'm happy and proud to say that wonderful NGOs and organizations like Azim Premji Foundation, BGVS, CWC, CMCA, Pratham Books, United Way, and various other organizations have started working with us on the ground. Shikshana Foundation, we are proud to have all of them as partners working with us on the ground. Tata Trust, Kalike, working with us on the ground in order to reach children through the libraries and ensure that they are able to catch up with their studies in this most difficult year during the pandemic. This is one of the areas where I would earnestly reach out to all of you as one of the ways in which we can give back, one of the easiest ways in which we can give back wherever we are in the world. All of us, I personally, for example, have gained a lot from Karnataka. Wherever we are in the world, all of us may have gained from the education and the infrastructure and the care that our families and our country has given us. Our position in life has come from educational institutions, not only from our own parents and our families, but also from high quality educational institutions which the state has set up, whether it is in Karnataka or outside in India or anywhere in the world. That kind of access to knowledge is very rare and very not very easy to access for every child or every student in the world. And therefore, one of the ways in which we can give back is to support a library, support a rural library to become not just a library from where people can borrow books and read about what is happening in the world every day, but also a knowledge center, also a center from where they can access every single educational resource that they need, whether it's a dictionary, whether it is exam preparation books, whether it is encyclopedia, whether it is online preparation, whether it is information about jobs. It's not difficult to set up a little rural library which is self-contained, which provides career guidance, which provides children and students with the kind of social capital and information capital that they require in order to access and to access knowledge and to achieve achieve the fullness of their potential, which otherwise they would not be able to do. Every child in Karnataka has the potential to achieve. All we need to do is find a way to unlock that potential, whether it is a child who has been married too early. There are children in Karnataka who are still being pressurized into marriage at the age of 14 and 15 and 16. That is something we can stop. That is something that need not happen at all and should not happen at all. There are children who are being forced into child labor. There are children who, because of special needs, because of dyslexia or locomotor disability or different kinds of disability, are unable to access education. There are children who are visually impaired. There are children who, with braille books and with audio books, can access knowledge just like everyone else. And this is the kind of work that we're calling out to young people. My department makes an earnest and sincere request to young people everywhere to partner with us in this effort, because this is a project which yields immense satisfaction and which cannot be done by one group of people or one sector alone. It requires the entire community to participate. This was an example of how we can help how we can participate in the development, how we can build the nation. Nation building is not only about structures and about buildings, it's about building lives, it's about building futures, it's about building health, nutrition, building creativity, fostering achievement of every kind, allowing those who have been historically discriminated against, like women, scheduled tribes, scheduled caste, persons with disabilities, encouraging and supporting such sections of the people who have historically been among the weaker sections to achieve the fullness of their potential. This is something that we're trying to do in Rural Development and Panchayat Raj Karnataka through a program called Odua Belaku. We invite all of you, any of you who'd like to participate in this, we invite you to participate, partner with us, and help us to achieve the dream of enabling every child and every student in Karnataka to achieve the full potential. Thank you so much, and I wish this conference all the very best.
Thank you, ma'am. As you said, I think that was a very beautiful line. That nation building is not only about building, constructing buildings. It's about building lives and giving opportunities and passing on the privilege to people who are unprivileged. So this was truly inspiring, and your words were truly inspiring. So, ma'am, I have a personal question to you. It's
Sure.
Yeah, one question with two parts actually. Ma'am, in India, we have been always talking about women empowerment. So, do you think that, talking about women empowerment somewhere is leading to gender inequality, or in other ways, we are giving more importance to women and, somewhere subsiding the importance to men? And second question is that, or do you think that women empowerment is actually not happening, or it's just going on, it's just a saying that it's a women empowerment, but you cannot actually see it? What is your take on this, ma'am?
I'll give an example. I was traveling in Mandya and Kodagu, Mysore this week. I went to one of the panchayats. As per the 2011 census, the panchayat officer was showing us a presentation. She showed us that the panchayat has a literacy rate of something like 57 or 58% in 2011 census. But the gender gap, the literacy rate among men was more than 60%, whereas the literacy rate among women was only something like 52 or 53%. That itself is an example, and it's a great symbol of the inequality that prevails in not only in our society but prevails in developing countries in the world of the discrimination that women face. Another example is that in Mahatma Gandhi Narega, the wage is equal for men and women, 275 rupees. But even now, when I visited a site in Kolar recently, some months ago, a man came up to me last year sometime, I think early last year. A man came up to me and he said, it was a site where women and men were both working. And he said, why in this particular scheme are women paid exactly the same as men? Because men should be paid more. I said, don't you do exactly the same work? Because the work is defined very clearly as exactly the same for the men and women in that particular task. And he said, yes. But he said, everywhere else, other than this scheme, men are paid more than women. So these are the realities that we're living in. And I think it's all too important to talk about women's empowerment, and not only to talk about women's empowerment, but to walk the talk, to ensure that women get access to economic empowerment, to access to income, to a chance to earn a livelihood, but also social empowerment, political empowerment, and equity in terms of health, in terms of healthcare, in terms of nutrition, in terms of an ability to lead a full and productive life. The very fact that girls are getting married before the age of 18, despite the fact that it's prohibited by law, shows that it's so easy to close the opportunities that are available to young girls even before they grow up as full adults, able to make their own choices. So for all these reasons and for all these realities that prevail, not only in our country, but in the world, across the world in different forms, um, gender inequalities prevail. And a part of it is to talk about them, and to talk about them despite the fact that sometimes it may be tiresome, it may be tedious to talk about it, it may be repetitive, but one needs to keep talking about them to ensure that they don't fall off the table. One also needs to keep metrics in mind. One needs to keep the evidence on the table. One also needs to actually work to erase these inequalities and to make a more equal world, not only for women, but for every section of society which has not had the benefit of equality.
Thank you, ma'am. I request the delegates to put up your questions in the chat box, and ma'am would answer for it. Ma'am, while you were talking, you just told that we could also help the government in a particular scheme. How is it, ma'am? Should we approach it as an individual, or is it only for an organization to do so?
Yeah, so there are two things. For example, there are different ways to help, and depending on one's preference. One of the areas I think which is a permanent help is to build solid libraries across the state, which will help children and young people. It will help senior citizens, it will help people with disabilities. It helps to build a learning community. And therefore, one of the great things that we can do, young people are always, students, all of you all are scholars, you all are working in different colleges, you all are studying, you're always sharing your books, you're always, going on to something else. Suppose you finish your master's and then you're going on to a PhD, you may not need your master's books anymore. But instead of just disposing of them to the Raddiwala or to passing them on to somebody who may not use it, or passing them on to an individual person, if you pass them on to a library, then that library grows richer, because that library becomes more self-contained. This is one of the things where immediately young people can help us. Your own books, as well as organizing book collection drives among the students and among your organizations. When we were organizing a book collection drive last year, NIMHANS alone organized a book collection drive, and the NIMHANS community gave thousands of books to our book collection drive. Similarly, Whitefield Rising and an organization of young people called Yuva got together and collected books for us from different apartment associations in Bangalore. And that was a huge collection of, more than 10,000 books. Similarly, different campuses, whether it is the Indian Institute of Science, whether it's the Azim Premji University, different campuses can organize book collection drives. Books are an important resource. They are more important than we realize, because they open children's and students' eyes to the world. That is one. The second is that young people, especially rural, poorer children, less privileged children in rural areas, always need mentoring. Most of them are first generational learners. Many of the students coming to the colleges also are probably the first generation of their families coming to college. My own grandmothers, my mother's mother and my father's mother, neither of them even finished school, let alone college. My mother was the first and only graduate in her family. But both my grandmothers and my mother made sure, they were fierce women who made sure that all their children studied and went to college and university. And now within 2 generations, there are engineers, doctors, MBAs, PhDs, and so on, civil servants in the family. And this is how opportunity gets passed on. This is how we can help rural children. The kind of fierce mentoring that families give to their children is perhaps not possible for less privileged children, for children who are homeless, for the children of people who have to work in the fields all day, for children of persons who do physical labor and are too tired to come home, and perhaps may not be able to help their children with homework. It's possible for us to mentor children and become their way to achieve social capital. It's possible for us to go to a library once a month, uh, talk to the children, give them guidance about what exams to write, what opportunities, how they can achieve. These are all ways in which you can help. We would be happy to facilitate. You can reach out to us. You can reach out to our Commissioner Panchayat Raj. You can reach out through an organization like Akanksha, and we will certainly make pathways for each and every one of you who'd like to help in order to use your potential to help our rural children.
Thank you, ma'am. We have Rashi who has a question.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes,
yeah, I can hear you.
Good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, my question was, don't you think the awareness and the women empowerment is limited nowadays to only social media, like the community and the people who are not on social media, how will they get aware? We are focusing on the people who are on social media. I believe that sometimes, for example, there is a movement for the betterment of the women equality, and everyone is posting on social media, forwarding it on WhatsApp, so it is limited to only WhatsApp and the other platforms. But on the real life, it's not that um,
Right. That's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. Social media is only the tip of the iceberg, and not everybody's on social media. Very small fraction of people have the luxury even to be on social media. However, social media, the flip side of that is that social media is extraordinarily powerful, and it's a double-edged weapon. It has the capacity to spread wrong information or wrong ideas, as well as good constructive messages. So I think there's certainly a scope for using social media in a very responsible and constructive way, and to spread out a call for participation on social media. But social media should not be the only form of communication. We, for example, in RDPR, in our department, use every form of communication. All the way during COVID, we were talking, for example, during COVID last year in March, we were training our Gram Panchayat task forces on YouTube Live with science-based dissemination of information about COVID and about coronavirus and about social distancing and masks and so on. But at the same time, the Gram Panchayats within their Panchayat were using traditional media, traditional forms of communication, like beating the drum and going around house to house to inform people. Therefore, we should be very conscious that social media is only one part of the potential ways of communicating. It's a very powerful tool, so I would never say don't use it. We must use it, but we should be conscious that there are many ways to communicate, and we should be conscious to pass the mic and ensure that those voices who are not represented in social media are also given some way to communicate to us. There are some questions on the chat. Should I answer them directly? How do we make people from underprivileged backgrounds understand the importance of education? If we have a person who's training even to earn a bread, how can we expect that person to prioritize education in his situation? Good question. People, 25 years ago, 28 years ago, when I joined the service, people were still not aware about the importance of education as a tool for social mobility, as a tool to achieve, as a tool to a better life. And for example, girls were not being sent to school in exactly the same way that boys are being sent. Today, girls and boys are more or less, almost all children are being sent to school. Even now, there are a few children out of school. And that's something that we're working on now. But awareness comes with social change. That is one part of it. The second thing is that while people are struggling, that's exactly the reason why public education should be given importance. That's exactly the reason why we need to take more responsibility and ensure that they don't have to struggle to educate their children. People are struggling for a piece of bread, but they're also struggling to educate their children. and they want their children to have a better life. So you'd be surprised, they don't think of education as a luxury. They think of education as something that they desperately want to give their children. And if we can help them to access that, they will do anything in order to educate their children. About tribal communities found in Karnataka, they are struggling. Will their struggle end in upcoming days, or is there an amendment? This is a very generalized kind of question. Tribal communities struggling for different reasons. I think the very fact that we have special programs for tribal communities, we have ashram shalas, we have residential schools, we have hostels, we have special programs to help tribal children succeed. The very fact that we have these programs shows that there is a very strong recognition that tribal communities are underprivileged and need support to achieve equity. And that's an ongoing process. It's something that's going on. There's another question about corruption. Corruption is a very large question. Corruption, is there a way that we can give corrupted money? See, corruption is a very large question. Corruption is a problem of many, many dimensions. It's too large to get into now. But corruption is not something, the existence of corruption is not something that should prevent us from doing the good we can. Corruption is a complex syndrome, which is created by many, many kinds of problems with our processes, with our systems, with our culture of distrust and so on. And that is not something that should prevent us from helping those who need help and who are underprivileged. How to deal with the own community where I want to do and make a difference, but not able to because of opposition against girls' rights and education. Talking to those who are against girls' rights and education, we just have to keep on talking to them, not in an adversarial way, but we need to talk to them, keep the conversation going, and talk about the different ways in which girls can access education. Education is free. There are cycles, there are textbooks, there are uniforms, there are shoes and socks, there are midday meals. It is not expensive to send children to a government school. Government schools are doing a lot of work on improving quality. There's a lot of work being done on improving playgrounds, toilet quality, ensuring that there is drinking water and so on. So the fears that people have about girls' education, about whether the girl will get proper care when she goes to school, when she has her periods, or whether the facilities are proper to look after a girl and so on, those fears can all be dispelled if you talk to people about all the different things that are there as part of our program to improve girls' education. Thereafter, it is true that people do have prejudices about girls not going to school. I think the very fact that we continue to have conversations relentlessly plugging away and pointing out that it's important, girls can achieve, showing how role models are there. There are role models in every aspect of life. Today, there are women pilots from India who have flown an aircraft, a commercial aircraft, all the way from San Francisco to Bangalore across the North Pole, the longest flight in the world. And at the same time, we have women who are not allowed to ride a cycle or not allowed to learn to drive an auto rickshaw or something. And these are things that we should question. And certainly we can question them. If we question them and speak up, sometimes speaking up takes courage. Sometimes speaking up may not be the most fashionable thing to do. But if we speak up, and if we start speaking up, if one person speaks up, you'll find that 5 more people will speak up. And as we speak up, we will see that people will start listening. How can we as youth increase the effectiveness of environmental policy in order to achieve sustainable ecological development based on green economy? I think this is a very, very important question. There's a growing consciousness of green protocols. There's a growing consciousness about reusing, reducing consumption, reducing wasteful consumption, and reusing, recycling, about conserving water, conserving energy. And this growing consciousness is coming from young people. This is something that we need to continue doing. We're also having a great consciousness about solid waste management, even in rural areas. Just yesterday, I went and saw an excellent solid waste management unit, which has been started in one Gram Panchayat in Kodagu. There are men and women working on collecting the solid waste, segregating it, and selling the waste in order to earn revenues to run the unit in their panchayat. So I think that consciousness is coming, and continuing to work on this by example. By example, if we carry cloth bags, if we ensure that we're not using plastic, if we move to glass bottles in our personal life conspicuously without without making a song and dance about it, but showing that these are things that we are concerned about, I think as a community we will start seeing change. There is a question about girls not being allowed to study, and they want to. There's one girl, congratulations, who's the only girl in her village studying medicine. Congratulations. How to deal with a situation where no one wants to listen, as they thought their ancestors were more wiser than books knowledge. That's exactly how the pioneers have had to struggle. And it's wonderful. Congratulations that you are out there studying for a higher degree. All the very best. The very example that you will set when you finish and get your degree and start working as a doctor or whatever it is that you choose to do in life, that will be an example for other girls and other families, and it will inspire others. Gender norms and progress have been pushed back. Working mothers have been disturbed more often than fathers. That's true. That's very true. And that's exactly an example of the kind of discrimination we have to face. Layoffs have been more among women, hiring being low. Some girls would now never be able to go back to school. How do we as a society react and reshape this situation? I think this is from Mishka Sharma. I think, Mishka, this very recognition is the right place to start. The fact that you have recognized that women's livelihoods have been more unfairly disturbed during COVID than men's livelihoods. Women have been, even the women whose livelihoods have not been disturbed, have somehow had to deal with disproportionately larger responsibilities, both at home and on the work front. This is an important recognition that people are talking about now. This is something that needs to be addressed, and I think society will have to deal with the fact that this discrimination has become very visible now, and we need to find more equitable ways of working. The very fact that we're talking about it openly is the right place to start. What about those who fall into SC and enjoy luxurious life due to reservations? I don't think, this is a misconception. This is a misconception, and I think it's a larger question. The matter of proportional representation, the matter of representation and inclusion and diversity, these are all larger than individual anecdotal examples, which may be counter to the intention of creating a more equitable world. But certainly I'd be happy to discuss this offline in a different forum. Someone from Sikkim wants to know about schools, private schools or privatization. That's really not something that I know too much about. That's handled by the education department. Taluk Panchayat. Taluk Panchayat and implementing the two-tier system. As per the 73rd Amendment, we have a three-tier system and different tiers of the panchayats, the Gram Panchayats, Taluk Panchayats and Zilla Panchayats have different roles to play. Cordial relations between officials and rural people. I think cordial relations will come when conversations happen. We need to make those conversations happen. And these conversations, when different fora for such conversations, different stakeholder consultations. For example, at the level of the Gram Panchayat, there is the Gram Sabha. There is the Children's Gram Sabha, Makkala Gram Sabha. There is the Women's Gram Sabha. So these are all places where, as citizens, people need to come and start speaking. And that's how we build a cordial relation. relations may not be cordial at first. They may be more adversarial, they may be questioning, but they will lead to better transparency, better accountability, and a more constructive engagement. Is there any opportunity for youth in Panchayat Raj, like training workshop? This kind of opportunity will help the youth to know better about villages or rural development. Yes, we have 90,000 members who are being trained since last 2 weeks, and in the next coming 8 weeks, over 10 weeks, we are training 90,000 Panchayat members, newly elected Panchayat members. Many of them are very young. The youth have come in large numbers, standing for election in Gram Panchayats. They have entered political life, and they are now looking forward to being trained, given induction training, to understand how they can lead their local governments to help the people for development. There is a question about artificial intelligence. Oh my goodness, there are many questions. I think I'll have
Plenty of questions, ma'am.
Yeah, I'll have to answer these later. But there is one last question about my experiences as a woman IS officer. Did I face any difficulties? Not at all. We've all faced difficulties, but nothing special as a woman IS officer. It's a challenging job like any other. There are many challenging jobs in the country, and being in the IS is one of them. It's also a great privilege and honor to be in the IS and to be able to work to improve the lives of people, men, women, children, elderly, people with disabilities, to do what we can in the service of our country and in the service of our people. Thank you. I think I'll end here. Any other questions can always be sent to me. I'll be happy to answer them at a later date.
Sure, ma'am. I'll send.
Sure, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you so much for your precious time and being with us and answering all the doubts of delegates and enlightening us with this brightful session. On behalf of Akanksha, I extend a heartfelt thank you to you, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and I'm sorry I was on a poor connection, but it's been a pleasure, and I look forward to partnering with you all. I think Akanksha is already working with us on our libraries.
Yes,
and
ma'am.
I look forward to that partnership. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Goodbye.
Session is over to Pranita.
Am I audible? Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, Varsha. It was indeed a wonderful session. So, dear delegates, here is a very small announcement. So, please attend all the events for these 2 days of the 2 days program. Your participation certificate will be based on your presence and participation in the event. Okay. And during the session, as already mentioned, or just I like to repeat it. So, during the session, please disable your audio and enable your video so that we can have more lively session with no abruptions. If you have any queries or any questions during the session, so you can just post it in the chat box. All of you will get a chance to interact and also give the we will take up all of your questions if the time permits. I hope it's clear. Now we shall proceed for the second event of the day. So again, this is Pranita Bapat, member of Akanksha Charitable Trust. It's my pleasure to introduce one of our invited speakers, Mrs. Farha Shastha, for the event today. Mrs. Farha Shastha is presently the Executive Editor of Insider's Business Division, overseeing the UK Bureau. Earlier, she was at Thomson Reuters, where she was one of the moderators for Global Market Forum. She had then worked at the Financial Times Money Management magazine and also as a deputy digital news editor for CNBC International in London, managing the fast-paced business news stories. She has won a number of awards. To mention a few, in July 2020, she has won Women Economic Forum's Iconic Women Creating a Better Tomorrow Award. She was also shortlisted for the Asian Women for Achievement Award in Media category. It's really an honor to have you in the event, ma'am. And also it's our pleasure to know about the India's young demographics and how can we change the world. So with no further ado, I would like to hand over the session to you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes. You're
Perfect. Okay, great. Well, thank you very much for inviting me for this event. I've been associated with Akanksha Trust for a few months now, and it's been such a pleasure to be associated with you all. I'll tell you a little bit about myself, about where I am, and then we'll talk a little bit about India's rising demographics, which is actually a very, very fascinating topic, and it jumps out more and more in the current scheme of things. So my name is Farha Shastha. I am based in London right now. I've been here for the past 13 years, well, nearly 13 years. Before that, I was in Delhi. I was born and brought up in India. I mean, it's the last 13 years that I've been in London. I've been a journalist. I worked across various news organizations. I've sort of been very responsible for producing news, following news, what's been going on from a global context. And it's been very fascinating to be sitting in this position and being looking at how emerging countries like India, Brazil, Indonesia, all of these countries are rising so fast, growing so quickly, that you sometimes feel that emerging markets like India are actually getting fast ahead of all the other economies like the US, like the UK, who are traditionally considered to be sort of the developed economies, and they are developed, they are superpowers in some ways, but how countries like India, because of their population, which sometimes we think is a bit of a challenge, because when we talk about the most populated countries, we talk about China and we talk about India, and we say, oh my God, India has a very high population, and it's very difficult to deal with that. But then today we are talking about how we turn crisis into opportunity. And this is the best way of how we, sort of turn crisis into an opportunity. The large population of India, the 1.3 billion population of India, is not a crisis. It is an opportunity for India. How is it an opportunity for India? Well, India is one of the fastest growing economy today. If you see reports from the IMF and the World Bank, the international organizations, you see that even despite the challenges of COVID, the pandemic weighing on us, India is one of the fastest growing economy. But India is also home to a fifth of the world's youth, the fifth of the world's young population. So half of its population of 1.3 billion is actually below the age of 25, and a quarter is below the age of 14. So India's young population is its most valuable asset at this point of time, but it's also a pressing challenge. So this is sort of, it's a bit of a conundrum that India is in right now, because, while you have a really strong young rising population, which that if you turn that into an opportunity, it will be a really big asset for India. But then we are also battling, unemployment and poverty, which means that young population does not have enough opportunity. So what is it that you young people like yourselves can do to ensure that you turn that crisis into opportunity? So I'm going to talk a little bit about that and focus on that aspect of India, but at the same time I'm going to use some of my examples as well, my personal life examples of how when I left India, what sort of experiences I had in my career, and hopefully that inspires you. But along the lines, if you have any questions, if you feel this is something that I really want to know more about, please send in the chat and I'll definitely read through it and we can look at it in the end. I believe I've got about 30 minutes. Is that right, Pranita?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, off we go. So in order to understand what skills and jobs India's young people want, and sort of what the current education system, whether the current education system sort of meets this aspiration, there have been lots of sort of research that's been done. So one of the organizations, a big organization called the World Economic Forum, it went ahead and it asked about 5,000 young people in India that, do you think you have enough opportunities? And what the results came back were rather fascinating. So the results said that while a lot of Indians were very ambitious and they really wanted to show greater sort of control of their career. So, giving an example, I remember when I was growing up, up until about my college, which was undergraduation, which was about 17, 18 years old, I always thought that I'll get into civil services. And as our previous guest just mentioned, it is an honor to be serving as a civil servant. That's all I wanted to do. My focus was single focus. I wanted to take the IAS exams. I wanted to get through the Indian Foreign Service, and I wanted to be abroad and represent India. I remember I took two exams, two consecutive years of the IAS exams, the UPSC exams, and I did not get through. And when I failed both times, I was rather distraught. I was very upset by the second year, and I thought, what is going wrong? This is exactly what I wanted to do. So why am I not getting through this? But one thing that I forgot along the lines was those 2 years and many years of preparation that I did for the civil services made me very knowledgeable in some ways, very informed about things that was going on. So in order to sort of keep my mind off the failure that I had, I remember my father, he brought me this advertisement that had come out for an internship in a newspaper, in a magazine, in a foreign affairs magazine. And I had a background in politics and international affairs. So he said, why don't you go for this internship? You like writing, you enjoy political science, maybe give it a go and it'll keep your mind off. And I went with a very half-hearted approach, but I went to the interview. I really liked the conversation that we had there. It was a very, God bless his soul, but it was Mr. Dilip Padgaonkar, who was then the editor of Times of India, and he had decided to start his own magazine called India and Global Affairs. And I worked in India and Global Affairs for a year as an intern, and with a starting salary of I think about 12,000 rupees per month. And I thought this is just a stepping stone for me. I don't want to do this. I want to go back into civil services. And about 6 months, 7 months into it, I really started enjoying the work. I started liking what I was reading, picking up the phone and talking to experts, just sort of pushing myself every day to be able to do something different. And towards the end of that course, I thought, no, I want to be a journalist. I absolutely love doing this. And this is what I want to be. And I've never looked back after that. At that point of time, I decided that I wanted to do something, sort of go for higher education. So I came to London where my parents were already here and I did another course. But what I'm trying to tell you from here is that was a situation in my life where I felt like there was crisis. There was massive crisis. I failed twice. And I wasn't sure if this is what I want to do. But the moment I realized there was this inner voice that said, you like writing, you like politics, this is an interesting career, why don't you give it a try? And I did, and I really enjoyed it. So one of the things that this particular World Economic Forum research tells you is that Indian young people are very ambitious. They want to have control over their career decisions. But somewhere down the line, they are pulled back by traditions and aspirations that their family and their parents have, which is very true for all of us, right? We may want to be something else and our parents may want us to be something else. There's always this big divide between us and our generations, our previous generations. And that is one of the reasons that pulls sometimes the Indian youth back. So you may actually want to be a writer, but your parents may want you to be an engineer. How do you go and explain them that is not where your passion lies? And that's something that this research focuses on quite a lot. So it says Indian youth are very independent. They're very optimistic, but sometimes their educational choices and their influence of their family plays a big role on their career decisions. So while young people are they're constantly looking for like lucrative employment opportunities, they want to aspire to do big things in life. Sometimes they feel that they're 19% actually, 19% of the people said that they feel that they're influenced by what their family are saying. And that's why they sometimes take a step back. So to give you an example, so for instance, a friend of mine recently, she got a really good job opportunity, which would have taken her outside of India. But her parents did not want her to go outside of India. So she had to give up that opportunity and stay in India. So many times you have situations like that sometimes pull you back. How do you deal with it? You have to be clear in your head in terms of what you want. If you are clear, if you are sure that this is the opportunity that you want to pursue, I'm sure you can convince your parents as well. You have to convince by giving out reasoning. Sometimes you may not have the right reasoning. It may just be a passion that you feel in your heart. But you have to, they always say that, walk before you can run. So have a plan in place where you think that you may test it out a little bit. So if writing, for instance, is something you like, start taking up like small writing assignments to actually prove that this is something that you're good at. And that helps you and sort of gives you confidence and gives your family confidence that yes, this is something that you can potentially do. Another thing that this report really brings out is how Indian young people need a lot more guidance and career counseling, as opposed to a lot of sort of young people that are educated outside. And it says that because young people in India are facing multiple barriers, which could be, the information asymmetry that they face because of jobs and skills across the country that they live in. Their career goals may not be as realistic. Sometimes they may not have the right kind of guidance. They sometimes sort of falter or fall back when it comes to taking that right decision. So, and that is very true. And, sort of going back into example of my own life, when I came to London and I joined this university called City University for my journalism course, I realized that everybody in my class, my class was about 60 people, everyone in my class knew how to go out and network, go to various senior people in the industry and talk to them, ask them for job opportunities. I'd never done that traditionally. In India, we traditionally never really go for any networking opportunities. We never really go and talk to people about jobs. We are very dependent on placements, right? There are no placements here in the UK. You are in charge of your own career, they say. So they say you sit in the driver's seat and you decide what you want to do. I'd never known that. So it took me a really long time for two things. One, to understand how do you actually approach a person who's offering a job. I was very hesitant to go to an event where I would just go and start talking to people and say, hey, do you have a job for me? I was very hesitant. So it took me a little while to actually understand how do I break those barriers. And one thing I started doing was I started falling on mentoring quite a lot. So I would reach out to senior people in the industry from India, maybe, or other places who had graduated from the same university. And I would ask them, how did you do it? What would be your advice for me? How do you think I can actually do this? Because traditionally, I've never really gone out and asked for a job. It's always been placement. So that really helped doing that. So my advice on that front always to people is, if you are struggling to find out what to do next, if you're struggling to find that career path ahead of you, so the best thing to do is always reach out to people who may have done it. They're always willing to help. Most of the people are always willing to help, and ask them. So if there is a particular university you want to get into and you just don't know what the next steps are, I'm sure there are Facebook groups, there are LinkedIn groups, there are so many social media groups where you can reach out to people who have graduated from that university and say that, would it be possible for you to just spend 5 minutes and tell me what are the next steps if I want to apply for this university, or if I want to apply for this particular job, or if I want to prepare for this exam, because I'm a little bit lost. It's always better to ask than sort of fall back and think that I can do it and you won't be able to do it because there's not enough information available out there. So as I said, going back to the point I was talking about, because sometimes we don't have that guidance and career counseling, in many cases, we are not able to reach out and take that next step with that full confidence that we should be able to do. So definitely keep that in mind. It also says that there are lots of young Indians who are interested in pursuing higher education and skills development, and they are constantly looking at opportunities for doing that. And that's a really good point. That we in India, I remember when I finished my graduation at Delhi University, it was a no-brainer for me that I have to go for post-graduation. It was very, very sort of clear in my head that after graduation, I have to go for post-graduation. And I wanted to build those skills before entering the job market. So my first job was at the age of 21, when I was 21 years old. By then I'd done my graduation, my post-graduation, and then I got into my first job. And then I realized that this is a skill that I'm missing. If I want to do journalism, I'm missing that skill. And I think that's what is a big favor in the side of India, that in India, all the young people are, they are constantly sort of eyeing the next step in terms of what career move that they want to do. So they depend heavily on higher education to be able to build up their skills that that they need. And skill building is extremely important. So, now as well in your sort of career progression, you'll come across lots of skills that you think, maybe where everybody is doing it, so you want to do it. Don't do that. I mean, have a plan in place. Have a think about what is it that you really want to build out. So, for instance, I remember when I was in college and school, I remember that I really enjoyed public speaking. I really enjoyed writing. So I would always lean more on anything that helps me build that skill. Later on in my life, I realized that if I'm in journalism and I want to do financial journalism, I need to have a background in economics. And I did not have any background in economics. So I started building my skills more in economics and business and finance. So my suggestion to you, my sort of advice to you would be, never think you've actually learned enough, because you'll never be in a position where you think you've learned enough. You'll always want to reskill yourself. You build your skills. Even now, I'm 36 years old. I lead the Insider Business newsroom. But just yesterday, I was thinking about sort of thinking about doing a course and building up something to do with AI and technology, because there's just so much reporting happening on that front, so many stories on artificial intelligence, and I feel sometimes that I don't know as much. So at every stage of your life, you should think about what is it that, if you want to keep going, if you want your career to go in the right direction, you have to constantly keep thinking about, what is the next step I'm doing? What are my weaknesses? How can I go ahead and build my skills to go to the next stage, to go to the next level? So that's extremely important. And a lot of young people in India do that, but we should be doing more and more of that. And then the private sector, and we are very lucky that way, because we've got a massive private sector in India that, you know, they play a very big role in skill building. You've got everything from private universities to companies as well. A lot of companies that are now offering jobs initially, sort of the graduate training programs. They sometimes have, these plans in place that they train you quite early on before you join the job. So that is a really good opportunity to look at as well. So when is the time for you to apply for jobs, look out for what sort of training that company will provide to you as well. So a lot of companies do that, and that sort of the private and public involvement there is, sometimes government offices do that, government companies do that as well, sometimes private companies do that as well. But if you're able to identify, like for instance, I know Infosys does that quite a lot, and I was literally just reading an article about how Infosys hires a lot of young people right from their college, and they train before they get into the job. We do that here in our company as well in London, where we have a 6-month internship before we hire someone. And those internships and those training programs really help, because what they do is they, so for instance, in the first 6 months that we hire people, we work with them on a weekly basis. And we have a structure for them that we say, okay, this is how you should be, learning about writing. This is how you should be learning about writing a headline, about writing a story. And same way, it's sort of that same thing exists across industries and across organizations. So when you're ready to take that first step to find your first job, be very, of course, it's that great feeling to have your first job. I'm sure all of us, have gone through it in many ways. And that first job offer that you get, you're like, oh my God, yes, this is what I want. My life is set, and I can just go and do what I want now. But think very hard before you accept that offer, and be sure that that's what you want. And ask questions before you accept that job offer. Will I be trained enough? Will I be getting support along the way? What would you do to be able to help me build my skills along the way? Because the company that you choose, the job that you choose, will help you in deciding your next course of action. It's not going to be, we're a little bit different from our parents' generations in that sense that, when we join a company, we don't stay there for 30, 40 years. We move very quickly. But when we move quickly as well, our jobs define how our careers progress. So my job in India, when I joined as an intern in the news organization called India and Global Affairs, was a turning point in my career, right? Because I joined that for a year and I realized I want to be a journalist. And that pushed me to think about the next step. The next job I did, I realized I want to be a financial journalist. So that pushed me to the next stage. So every stage of your life, every stage of your career in some way is like a stepping stone to the next one. So make sure you're absolutely sure before taking that step that this is a progress for you in some ways, right? So that's really important to know. And then, I want to open it to questions as well in about 5 minutes. So yeah, if you have questions coming, please send them over. But one thing that I wanted to focus on, and this is something that is heavily talked about across the world, is just the amount of social media and internet influence that that India has, or the influence that social media and internet has on the Indian youth. So India currently has the highest amount of smartphone users. We have the highest amount of Twitter users. it's not surprising, because you have such a big young population under 25. So which means that everybody has a smartphone, everybody has a Twitter account, everybody has a Facebook account or a LinkedIn account. But social media and internet, while are really great sort of inventions in the last many years, it depends on how you use them, how you use social media. And I don't know how familiar you're with news over the last few weeks or months, but something like when TikTok, how many of you here are familiar with TikTok? Yeah, lots of you. Okay. So when TikTok a couple of months ago decided to pull out of India, what happened here? What happened in India? There was massive sort of drama, right? Everybody started getting worried that if there's no TikTok, what would we do? Within minutes, within seconds, you had a TikTok equivalent of India, an Indian equivalent of TikTok that came up very quickly. And people were like, wow, I mean, India is now producing its own apps, which is very similar to what the foreign apps are. So that was a very interesting situation. And then after that, you had exactly the same thing with Twitter, right? Twitter started blocking a few accounts in India because of the farmer protests. Within minutes, you had a Twitter sort of clone called Coup, which is now a platform in India, which is very similar to Twitter. So big companies like Twitter, TikTok, Google, they're all a little bit worried as well. Well, India is a really big market for them, and they want to be in India, Amazon included. They all want to be in India. They all want to have that piece of cake from India, because they know that there are 600 million people in India who are below the age of 25, who all have smartphones in their hand like that. They are ordering things on Amazon. They are going on Twitter and tweeting. They are using TikTok. They are using Google. They're also the people who can very quickly switch to an Indian platform, because India is able to produce that very quickly. No other country can do that very quickly. So that is a massive, massive advantage that India has. And it's been able to show that. It's been able to show that strength of the young population in the last few months very quickly to the big players, the big tech, as we call them. So how is it that the Indian population, the young population in India, can use social media more efficiently, as opposed to just patrolling, which we do quite a lot, or tweeting misinformation, which again we do quite a lot, but more and more for finding job opportunities. And that's where something like LinkedIn comes into play. So I was just reading an article before I was talking to you about how the World Economic Forum says apparently that majority of population in India, majority of young population in India relies on LinkedIn to find job opportunities. And that is extremely, extremely heartening to hear. I mean, I'll talk to you about my personal experience as well. When I was looking to find a job, sitting here in London, I've always relied on LinkedIn. I've always relied on finding out who the right person is in an organization, sending an email to them through LinkedIn, connecting with people on LinkedIn, and using social media as a way to find opportunities, as opposed to, social media is both a boon and a bane, as we all know. But let's make social media work for us. I mean, we've seen how social media helps in mobilizing big protests and spreading misinformation in some ways. But social media also is great if you're able to use it for your own advantage, for you to be able to use it for finding job opportunities, career building, skill building. As I said, LinkedIn has a massive platform where you can do free courses, and it gives you that opportunity to then learn sort of new courses, build your skills along the way. So it totally depends on how you want to use that social media platform. But for India's young population, and as I mentioned before, because we are the biggest users of smartphones, biggest users of internet. It is extremely, extremely a good thing for us that we are able to use that for the right purposes. So the young population in India can now rely heavily on finding job opportunities using social media. And then the final thing that I wanted to talk about, and then I'll open it to questions and answers, is over the last couple of months, everybody has been talking about how India has, the world is suffering from a pandemic right now. Everybody is in a lockdown because of COVID-19. But then you see that things are starting to get better in India. The cases have fallen down quite a lot. From the cases about 2-3 months ago was 100,000 a day. Now the cases have come down to about 10 to 11,000 cases a day. So how is that happening? And a lot of experts have pointed out that it is because of the young population in India that COVID-19 has sort of impacted them. Many people have had COVID-19, but they've recovered very quickly because of the young population. Now, compare that to something like Europe, where the bigger population is above 65. Now, COVID-19, as we've known from the data that's been provided to us, tends to impact senior population more harshly than it does for younger population. So countries and continents where you see higher, senior population seem to be suffering more as opposed to countries with a younger population. And that is why we, in some ways, as sort of experts have pointed out, that we see India reaching something called as herd immunity, which means that so many people in India have had the COVID-19 disease now that people have antibodies now, so they are all fine for at least for some time. They have that immunity that's built for some time, and they can all function nicely. So, which means the cases have come down quite a lot. That's not the same thing that we've seen in other countries as well. So this is another situation where a crisis in India was actually turned into an opportunity because of the young population. So there are lots and lots of ways in which crisis is turning into opportunity. It just totally depends on how you take it, how you sort of play it, and how you really jump on that opportunity at that point of time. But all said and done, as I said in the beginning, it is the fastest growing economy in the world. There's 600 million young people in India, and it totally depends on how you take your next steps and how you sort of play that to your own advantage. But the world right now, in terms of the data that we have, everybody is looking towards India, because whether it comes to technology, it comes to healthcare, there are steps that India is taking which is far ahead of a lot of other countries. And that is because of the growing young population and the growing skill set that we have. So it is your time right now, and this is the time when you should be able to take that next step. So I'm going to stop there, but if you guys have any questions, please feel free to send it over to me.
Okay, so ma'am, I had a question. This is Pranita. So as you yourself said that we have got more than 50% of our population, the younger part, like the youth, but still we are facing the problem of the unemployment, underemployment, and somewhere we are also lacking in the skilled laborers, we can say. So what do you think is a solution for it? How can we get out of it? Or the best part, how can we get it?
Yeah, so as I said in the beginning, Pranita, that's a great question. So it's a 1.3 billion populated population country. The country has a population of 1.3 billion. It is massive, right? It's difficult for the government to be able to provide that sort of opportunities from sort of to everyone in the country. But I think in this case, it's also to do with how the central government works and how the state government works. So, I think you have to have a better relationship between the two governments in many cases. But one of the things that I mentioned early on is how, as young people, you can decide what you want to do in terms of your career. You're taking control of that in your career, right? So you decide what you want to do. We decide to sort of take the next step in terms of how we think our strong areas are. So if our strong areas, let's say, are engineering, and that's what we want to do, we focus on that, and we take support from whether it's the government or the private sectors to be able to do that. There is a lot to be done in India, and as you said, skill set is something that we are not able to see as much across the board. I mean, I know that the government is setting up massive amount of polytechnic institutes, and that is something that the government can hopefully provide. But frankly, it is, like I said, it is one of those situations where it's a massive country which is divided by not just states, but across by languages, by people's situations, by class. But there's just a big divide across the country. So you cannot, unfortunately, have a one solution for the whole country, like sort of one size fits all policy. It has to be very bespoke for everyone. And I know I'm sure that the state governments and the central governments are working on that front. But again, it's one of those things where it'll take a long time. We've only had independence for 65, 70 years now. So it is going to take time. But even in that situation, even keeping all of those constraints in mind, there are lots of changes that have come. There are lots of innovations that have come. India has already gone to Mars in its first attempt. A lot of other countries are still doing that. So, when it comes to tech and IT, India is right there at the top. So there are lots of sort of positives. I think we just have to sort of work, be patient about how these things work. But yeah, no, great question on that front. I've got loads of questions here, so let me just go through it one by one. Ma'am, I just wanted to ask your experience about your UPSC preparation. What was, as per you, the reasons behind for not getting into the list? I don't know what the reasons was, Samantha. I mean, it could just be that looking back, I feel maybe I should have prepared better. Maybe I should have had a better plan in place. Maybe I was not putting my full, heart and soul into the preparation. It's also a very competitive exam. So I was in JNU where everybody around me was also preparing. So, I feel I gave my best, but maybe I did not. And, I don't think I know the reason behind it. But one thing I can say is that the moment I got into journalism and I realized that this is what I want to do, I gave my heart and soul to it. So it sometimes also depends that, you may think this is the right thing for you, but it may not be the right thing for you. So yeah, I don't know if that helps, but that's what it was. The next question is, I agree with you at all the points, but things are changing rapidly across the country. Freedom of speech and expression is no more. Skill development is no more. Youth opportunities are nowhere. My question is regarding youth inclusion and peace building and nation building. Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. It is a tough time. It is a tough time right now. And it's not just in India, it is across the world. I mean, if you look at what's happening in the US, and things are at least a little bit better now ever since the new government has come in. But the last 4 years when Donald Trump was the president of the US, things were very difficult there as well. The freedom of speech and expression, as we say, was trampled upon even in the US. So it's not, and US is one of the biggest democracies. It's not the same thing. It's not just in India. So the good thing I feel about it in India is when you say freedom of speech and expression is no more, yes, on a very big basis, on a larger scale, on platform like Twitter and things like that, you see, yes, it's not there, but it is a lot more democratic as compared to a lot of countries. We sometimes sit in India and think things are really bad, but trust me, in many ways, things are much, much better in India as opposed to the rest of the world. So, as they say, the grass is always greener on the other side. Trust me, situation is very good in India. Yes, we'll always have challenges, which we do everywhere. I live in the UK. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Brexit, with what's happening here with Brexit, but the last 3-4 years here have been very difficult as well, because the population here, some parts of the sort of aspects of the population wanted to send immigrants back to where they came from. That doesn't feel really nice, right? Because I'm a brown person sitting here. It doesn't feel nice when somebody says go back to your country. So at least if you think of it from that point of view, situation is the same across the board. You'll always feel there are challenges. My suggestion would be to just focus on what you're doing, and that's it. And you'll be fine. All right. Hello, ma'am. Good evening. I have one question. What is your opinion on the fellows who have talent, but they didn't get good platform to express their talent? How should we have the confidence to build the talent? What is the turning point that turned your civil service dream into journalist? That's a great question. I think it's in terms of platform, I totally agree with you. I think we in India sometimes find it difficult to get that platform because we are just constantly focusing on our studies. That's all we focus on, right? We go from school to college to masters, and then we wait for placements to happen. I think somewhere along the line, you should, I always encourage, and I have a 3-year-old son, and I think that's something that I really want to do with him as well, is just constantly keep thinking about what your strengths are and what your weaknesses are. As an individual, you should know what your strengths and weaknesses are. If your strengths are reasoning, maths, science, then you sort of feel like you have a little bit of career trajectory in front of you. I always knew that maths was not my strong point. I was far away from maths. My mother is a PhD in physics, but I would run away from physics and maths. So it was never my strong point. I knew my strong point was writing. My strong point was talking, public speaking. And that's why that pushed me into journalism. Well, before journalism, I wanted to go to IFS because I thought that's what my strong points are, politics and that sort of stuff. So I think for me, the turning point was that particular job I took at the magazine, that internship I did. somewhere into that job, about third or fourth sort of month into that job, I realized, oh, wow, I mean, this is great. This is what I want to do. And, you know, I can still represent my country, even if I'm not in the IAS. I can still go out and, you know, be someone. I just need to have that confidence to do that. So use that platform. I mean, my suggestion to everyone generally is to always know what your strengths and weaknesses are. Have a little document somewhere or a diary, which is very personal to you, but always write, these are my strengths, these are my weaknesses. And for your weaknesses, always try and think about how can you make those weaknesses your strengths? How can you work on those weaknesses? Maths has always been my weakness, but you know, lately I've been trying my best to see how I can actually work on it and I don't make dumb mistakes. So yes, try and always work on those. Next question. India is moving towards digitalization. How can we implement this in remote areas where there is no communication? I think there is already lots of work that's been happening on that front. And there is just so much that you keep reading about how there are now ATMs and there are mobile phones and smartphones. There was this TikTok video that I'd seen a couple of months ago about lots of children in a particular village, and they were all dancing, and they had created this TikTok video themselves. And that video went viral. Why? Because it was in a small village in Kerala, where apparently there's very little internet coverage that comes in, and the internet connection you get is only in a very small spot near a well. So all the children, they take their smartphones and they sit there in the evenings just to get that internet connection. And then they create these TikTok videos sitting there. And those videos went viral. And when it went viral after that, Vodafone, one of the companies, reached out to the people in the village and said, you know, if there is so much demand for internet in this village, then we are going to start creating more networks here. And they ramped up the network very quickly. So I think that was also there are initiatives, people are listening, everybody wants investment. There is a money angle to it as well. The big companies, the moment they see investment opportunity, they go for it. So that's really good as well. So yes. Let's go to the next question. I know you guys have to go to your next speaker, so I'll take 2 more questions and then we can wrap up. How to go abroad to pursue PhD? As I'm pursuing MPhil from JNU, what would be your input? As per NEP, where MPhil is scrapped, what should MPhil student do now? Oh, you're doing MPhil from JNU? That's great. JNU is such an amazing place. I absolutely love JNU. I spent 2 years at JNU doing my master's, and then I got into MPhil, and I decided I also, at the same time, got the job in the magazine. So I left JNU to do that. But if you want to do PhD abroad, I think, first of all, you should figure out what area you want to specialize in. So for any courses abroad, for any universities abroad, I think the bottom line always is, what is it that you want to specialize in? So let's say your specialization is in politics or international relations. Start thinking about the universities that are really good in that sense. So King's College in the UK, Oxford University, Cambridge, London School of Economics. Similarly, in the US, I'm sure you'll have Johns Hopkins University, you'll have Columbia. Make a list of those places and then start looking out for a couple of things. One, what is their sort of application system like? What is it that they need from you to apply for PhD? And second, also think about return on investment. It's very expensive to stay abroad and study and, you know, do these courses. And as glamorous as it looks from there, that, you know, you're going abroad to study, you have to start thinking about how are you going to pay it off? Is there a job opportunity that waits for you at the end of it? So before you take that plunge, make sure absolutely that you find out about, one, how much money that course requires you to pay. If it's a PhD, you may be able to get a stipend. So what's that stipend like? Will it take care of your monthly expenses in a city like London, for instance, which is very expensive? And what do you get at the end of those 4 or 5 years of PhD that you put together, or maybe 6 years as well? Do you get a job in London or in the US? Are there opportunities available? What's the visa status like? There are lots of questions. So my suggestion always would be to, yes, I wouldn't say don't do it, but do it with a very sort of clear head and very, very sort of clear structure in front of you and knowing all the information. And then, okay, so there are lots of questions. Okay, let me take this last one. What was your annual expenditure during your higher studies in Europe? I was a bit lucky that my parents were posted here in London. My father was posted here, so I did not have to pay for my accommodation. And frankly, that's the reason I came here. I wouldn't have come here otherwise. It's very expensive. When I joined my course at City University, I did not get a scholarship. So I paid only for the course, which was about £10,000. I did not have to pay for my accommodation. But I know that some of my friends had, and I'd taken an education loan, which I was then able to pay off after my course. I know some of my friends and my colleagues who had to take a much bigger loan to take care of their accommodation and expenditure. And again, it goes back to the same story that you have to figure out if you can get a job after that pays you around the same amount of money, because you will be paying your education loan. If your parents are paying for it, it's a massive amount of money that they will be spending. So think about these things, be a bit circumspect about these things, and think about these things much better before you actually take the plunge. So yeah, with that, I think I will stop there, if that's okay. Pranita, there are still questions coming, but
Yeah,
I'm also conscious of the time.
If you are willing, ma'am, we can take 2 more questions.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So the next question is, we rely heavily on rote learning and absolutely ignore extracurriculars. India's education and job environment doesn't really focus on these aspects. Using our experience in UK, how do you think we can change that? Yes, you're right, Aditya, and you have a really special name, by the way. My son is also called Aditya, so that's a great name. You are absolutely right. There is very little focus on extracurricular activities, and I sometimes feel it's down to you as well. If you want to do extracurricular activities, you'll probably push a little bit in your school. So for instance, I was not very good in studies all the time. I was average-ish in studies. I was never in the top 10 rankers, but I would always get the best debater prize. I would always get like the prize for best news reader of the school, or if there is a debate competition outside of school, I'll be the first one to go to. But then my like I said, I was okay-ish when it came to studies. Not I was never like top of the rank. So I think it totally depends on what drives you, what you enjoy doing. I always enjoyed debates, so I would always be the first one to go to my teacher and say, what's the next debate? Can I prepare for this? Do you have any poem competition? Do you have a news reading competition? Can I go on the stage in the assembly and talk about what the big story is today, or thought for the day as well? I remember it all started with thought for the day in the beginning. And all I wanted to do was just stand on the stage and morning thought for the day. So if you are interested, if you like extracurricular activities, now is the time to push for it, do it. If your school doesn't give you that sort of environment, then there are lots of things you can do on the side as well sometimes. So you can do like a drama theater course, you can get involved in some sports on the side. So I was really bad at sports, but I know lots and lots of people who would do sports on the side as well. So think about it. I mean, it's good that you've identified that this is an area that we lack generally. So now that you've identified the area that we lack, what is the next step? Start figuring out how can you actually work on that to make it your strength. All right. Okay. Last question. What do you think what are the skill sets required for 21st century youth, considering technology is changing very fast? Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head. The biggest skill set required right now is just to be fast paced and go along with the time. As you said, technology is changing very fast, so you have to stay with the time. So which would mean understanding what the latest gadgets are, understanding what they mean, understanding what the big sort of the big dynamic right now in the world is, which is the big technology companies. So Amazon, Facebook, your Google and Twitter, and the likes of Netflix, these companies are actually driving our lives. But if they're driving our lives, they're also driving politics in many ways. So to be able to understand what is it that these companies are doing, what is the big story right now, how are these companies or how are these technology companies, networks playing our lives? In some ways, they made us like slaves, right? All of them, Apple and Google or whatever. We are so dependent on them. And to ensure that your skill set is, you work your skill set along with these companies, along with what's the changes that's happening. So for instance, right now everybody is talking about AI, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. Maybe it's, your generation is going to be the ones that will drive this sort of technology. So it's time for you to understand what it really means. And maybe if there are opportunities in your school or outside in your college to do these courses, then this is the time to do these courses and understand. I remember when I was in school, computers had just been introduced. And I'd got one of those massive computer at my home, and I just learned how to type. And I realized that this is something, and I remember my parents were very sort of forward thinkers at that point of time, and they thought, a computer is something that everyone is going to lean on in the next few years. So you should start learning what it is. And it was such a great thing to learn, because now we are all on computers, right? We can't work without computers. The same thing, I mean, identify what the big technology or the big change right now is, and make sure you are with the times with that. Which I'm sure you guys are anyway are. I mean, I'm sure you all are very smart and you're on all the social media apps and the networks, and you probably understand it more than I do. So that's not a question for me to answer. It's more for you to answer.
Okay,
Hello, ma'am.
I would call Bhamini. She have raised her hand. So this would be
Sure.
the last question we'll be catering.
Yeah. Hello, ma'am. This is
Hi,
Bhamini.
Bhamini.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you, like, when you finally decided to shift in UK, like, how
Mhm.
did you overcome with your diasporic dilemma when you,
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Yeah. So when you say diasporic dilemma, do you mean how sort of cutting off, disconnecting from India in some
Yes.
ways? Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think I wasn't thinking about it when I moved to the UK, because initially my idea was to just move back to India and study here and then go back to India and work. Then when I got the job, I thought, okay, I'll stay for a year or so and then again move back. It keeps happening, right? You keep thinking at some point you'll move back, and then you just keep working along. And I think it's only in the last few years that it's really come back to hit me now, that I'm actually very far away from India. I'm sort of disconnected from India so much. And I try my best not to do that, because I keep in touch with my family and my extended family and my roots generally. But then it's also one of those things where, when you're trying to make your career, when you're trying to go ahead in your career, all you think about at that point of time is to just get ahead. There's nothing else that comes to your mind. So at that point of time, 13 years back, all I was thinking about was, I have to do something really nice. I have to do something really good for my career, whether it's getting a good job somewhere, something that pays me well. I have an education loan, so I should be able to get a job that pays off the education loan. And you don't think about anything else. And then many years later, now I feel like, oh, I never really moved back to India. I've been here for so long. And we try and travel every year, but it's still not the same. When friends in India are getting married, when cousins are getting married, you feel you're always disconnected from that. Festivals, it's not the same. So yes, as I said to somebody in the beginning, it feels very glamorous sitting there, that I'm based here in London and things like that. It is nice, but you're very disconnected from a lot of other things. It's not an easy life, living abroad and studying abroad and working abroad. It is a challenging life. You are doing everything by yourself. When we were in lockdown, or to when we are now, right now as well, a little bit out of lockdown, you're constantly responsible for every little work in your household, every little work outside. So it is a tough life, but yes, it is a great exposure, I would say. So if people can get it, I would really recommend everyone getting it. But I would also say that it's important to be very, very clear about what you're going to do if you want to go abroad.
Thank you, ma'am.
No problem.
Thank you so much, ma'am. That was indeed a very wonderful session. So it is said that doing best at this moment puts you in the best place for the next moment. So as ma'am herself said, learning is like never ending journey. So let us keep learning. So let's start giving our best with the hope of changing the world to be at its best. So thank you for your words. Thank you for your time, ma'am.
Sure. No, I really enjoyed it. Thank you very much, everyone. And sorry if I missed out on any of the questions, but feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter. I know that some of you are already following me, but please feel free to get in touch with me on Twitter with any questions that you may have. And I want to wish you all the best, and a special thanks to Akanksha Trust for inviting me for this.
Thank you. I would also like to thank all the delegates for their very active participation. So dear delegates, here we're going to have a very short and sweet break for 15 minutes. After that, we'll be continuing with the third session of today's event, sharply at 6:30 p.m. So whoever wants to take the break, they can have a break for 15 minutes and come back. Whoever are still wanting to be in the session or be online with us, so we shall have a I can say a refreshment sort of thing with a quite interesting event or an activity sort of thing. So even though we're gonna conduct an activity, you can have a break for 5 minutes at least and come back.
The targets, let's not go into it. Yeah. Okay. I wanted to talk about the Indian perspective of achieving sustainable development goal number 4, because it is slightly different than the global perspective.
These are the glimpses of the NYC 2020 delegates.
Statistics that talks about
and have a look
of the government that that has been introduced to achieve sustainable development goal number 4. And sorry, I also have some PDFs by MHRD. If you want, I can share them with you. And you'll also find so many data and statistics about these policies in the internet. But one thing that I wanted to say is about all these statistics, one thing has really disturbed me a lot, that these policies talk about the development in the number of enrollment rate, the development in the policies, the development in the literacy rate, but they hardly analyze the key term quality of the quality. When you say quality education, does quality education simply mean offering a structured and disciplined platform for learning, or should it mean opening up the blocks in all dimensions of human thoughts? In this aspect, again, the education provided by the private sector institutions and also the government sector institutions make a huge difference, of course, but let's not go into it. Coming back to sustainable development goal number 4, what I feel, yesterday while someone was talking to me here in the venue, she said to me, I think the more importance is given to the numbers. The quantity of enrollment rates, the quantity of education have been developing really for sure, but in terms of quality, we are lagging behind somewhere. If quality education means opening up the blocks in all dimensions of human thoughts, then why do we really deal in something, deal in put ourselves into something which is not beneficial for us. Let me give an example of a sports nutrition, because I'm a sports and I'm connected to the nutrition and diet aspect of the sports. There's a concept in sports nutrition which says if the food which is cultivated within a radius of 500 kilometers from you is nutritious for your body, and the food which is cultivated outside a certain range is not much nutritional for your body. The same goes to the aspect of education as well. What I feel, the education which we are receiving, in this aspect, I would also like to tell you that there are also statistics which says the Indian graduates that are receiving education here in India have more employment opportunities in the Western country or the developed countries, but not in India. What does it really mean? It means that the education that we're receiving is hardly making us capable to sustain here, and making it merely is converted.
Hi all. Whoever are there in the meeting, could you please enable your video so that I can see you all?
Hello, sir. Hello. Sir.
Yes.
Yeah. So actually, delegates are on break. We can start as scheduled at 6:30. Sir, it's a 10 minutes break. Just we finished the previous session. If it's a 10 minutes break, we can start exactly after 10 minutes, sir.
That's great. Just let me know.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. Pranita? Pranita?
Hi all. Whoever have already joined the meeting, so definitely the next event will be starting exactly at 6:30. No issues. So this is just a break time, right? So whoever are in the meeting can just enable your videos. I'll just call up your names. We can just have a quick interaction sort of thing. Shall we? Okay, Apeksha. Hi, Apeksha.
Hello, ma'am.
So, how did you feel the event? Did you
It's
enjoy
very
it?
nice. It's very nice, ma'am.
Okay. Where are you
Thank you
from?
for the opportunity.
Yeah. It's our pleasure to have you as well.
Thank you. I am
Okay.
from Kerala,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm now at Vivekananda Degree College, Puttur, studying.
Okay. Nice.
Um, yes.
So I hope you are enjoying the sessions and would definitely participate in the hackathon that is yet to come tomorrow. All the very best. So shall we pick someone else now? How about calling Poonam? Hi, Poonam.
Hello.
You can introduce yourself and
Okay. So, my name is Poonam. I'm from Lucknow, and yes, I am liking these sessions. But yes, I feel Kashe offline it would have been really very good. अच्छा लगता हाँ it's very sad that due to COVID we're at homes but still thank you for giving us this opportunity thank you for sure but yeah really I would have loved to come in person and attend such conference.
yeah, we will be looking forward to meet you in the NYC 2022 then. Let's definitely meet up.
Okay.
Yeah, as turning a crisis into opportunity, at least we are blessed to have this NYC 2021 at least virtually.
Yes.
So we can
Yes.
definitely connect with each other. So yeah, we can have interaction in the upcoming time as well. So we have got 2 days of time, right? So shall we have a small activity? We still have got 5 minutes of time. Yeah. So I hope at least half of you have come. Yeah, Sanmati is raising her hand. Hello, Sanmati. Could you please enable your video? Hello, Sanmati. Am I audible? Hi, Sanmati. How are you doing? Your audio is disabled. Please unmute yourself.
Yeah. Now it's audible?
Yeah. You're audible. Go ahead.
I'm Sanmati.
Yeah.
I'm from Karnataka itself.
Okay. Nice.
I'm studying BMS first year in SDM Hassan.
Okay. So how did you come to know about the event and how are you enjoying it?
Yeah, it's very well, yeah.
Nice. So yeah, it's in fact pleasure of Team Akanksha to have you all for this today's event. So we shall just have a 5 minutes refreshment now. Okay. So I call the name of the activity as Flaunt Your Creativity. Okay. So I just want all of you to enable your video now. All of you, whoever are in the meeting, please enable your video. Okay, we are running out of time, so we'll have to do it as fast as possible. Yes. All right. So as the name itself suggests, it is all about your creativity. Okay, I'll just give few names, like some random name or something. I'll just speak out or I'll spell it out. So you'll have to take a piece of paper and pen with you. So whenever I say that word to you, so whatever strikes your mind, you will have to write it up. Okay, and show it to me in the camera. So we'll we can have or we can understand that how differently we think the same word in our own minds, how different our worlds are, right? So shall we do it? So all of you are ready with a piece of paper and a pen? I hope it's
Can
clear
you please
for you.
again? Can you please again?
Do you want to
Explain?
repeat? Do you want me to repeat? Okay, I'll do it. So what will I be doing is I'll just spell out some very common names. Okay, nothing very like no rocket science, very common words or something like that. I'll just spell it out. Some names I'll give maybe, right? So what you'll have to do is just think of it. Whenever, for example, if I'm saying that school or college or student life, so what comes to your mind, we'll have to just sketch it out. You will only be getting 10 seconds, maybe I might extend it for 20 seconds, that's it. So within that amount of time, whatever you can sketch, just sketch it, right? And then we'll have to show it in the camera. I might like pick few of your names. So you'll
Sketch
have
it
to,
means we have to draw and all.
yeah, like not proper drawing though, just
Yeah,
sketch it out,
okay.
right? Only 2 minutes is left. Okay, shall we start? Yeah, everybody is ready? Good. So the first name or the word I'll have to give is happiness. Yeah, your time starts now. Whatever comes to your mind whenever you think of happiness, just sketch it down. Okay. Done?
Yeah,
Wait, Poonam. Yeah, done? Okay, stop. Okay, Poonam. Yeah, everybody show it. Bring your sketch to the camera. Good. Smile. Okay. Nice. Peksha, I've written something. Peksha, I cannot read it.
Dance.
Dance. Okay, you're a dancer. Nice. Cheers.
Not at all.
Then, okay. Then family. Yes. Nimra have written family. Then let us pick someone else. Oh, most of you have not even enabled your video. Guys, please enable your video. We can enjoy the session as well, right? All right. So we can see that all of us have got different definition for happiness, right? So we shall take one more word, right? We are running out of time. So destination. Okay. Journey. Nice, Bhamini. Okay, Poonam. Peace. Peace meaning others, life worthy. Wow, really great. Then being the change. Yes, that is also the privilege to be, right? Good, Mishika. Sorry, Apeksha, I can't read it out. I can't even see it.
It is the step to destination, and where like Akanksha Trust, I want to build one more trust.
Oh, nice. Priya, you have written something. Could you please show it to me? Every day is a destination. Really great. Okay, guys, it was really nice. You guys interacted really well. I thought it was a bit of refreshment to all of you. So, but one thing, you all wrote the words instead, but I had asked you to sketch something. No issues. We still have got some more amount of time. We can interact with each other. So now, with no further ado, I'll handing over the session to Ayushi. Ayushi, are you there? Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you, ma'am Pranita.
So, have you ever wondered when did it become good to be disruptive? I mean, what is the actual theory behind a word which carries a negative tone to it actually have a positive connotation? Well, you'll get all your answers today. Hello, everyone. I'm Ayushi Bajpayee, Global Ambassador of ACT. And this evening, I'm privileged to introduce our guest speaker, Chris Fields. So he's been disrupting the status quo since forever. One of his most important disruptions being the Mercy Project, which he started, a non-profit, to rescue children from human trafficking in Ghana, South Africa. Now, besides releasing his book, Disruption for Good, debuting as the #1 release in the Dreams category in Amazon, he has also delivered a few TEDx talks. And how are we privileged today? Because he's here with us. He's here with us to motivate us, to encourage us, to empower us, to shape a better future, a stronger future for ourselves as well as for the entire world. So without any further ado, I'd like to hand over this session to Chris, sir. Hello and welcome, sir. And for the delegates, if you have any doubts or queries, don't worry, we will address your questions at the end of the session. Just leave them down in the chat box.
Hello, thank you so much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Perfect.
Good, good. Good evening. Well, it's just morning time here in the United States where I'm tuning in from, but I know you all have had a very full day already of many activities. And I know that your brains are probably full of new information. And I hope to give you just a little bit more new information for you to be able to take home and to continue doing the good work that so many of you are already doing. So today I want to talk about a topic that is very close to me, and that is the idea of disruption. I wrote a book called Disrupting for Good because I became fascinated with this idea of how people change the world. And in that book, I have two definitions for a disruptor. The first definition is that a disruptor is someone who is uncomfortable with a truth. So they show up, take action, and persist until a new and better truth has been born. So I know that when you look around your life, when you look around your community, when you look around your school, when you look around your country, when you look around your world, I know there are things that make you uncomfortable. There are things you don't like, things that you know should be better or different than they are. And each one of us has the opportunity not just to see those things, but to actually choose to do something about them, which I'm going to tell you more about soon. The second definition of a disruptor that I have is that a disruptor is someone who dismantles accepted norms and forges unimagined futures. So there are so many things in the world that we just accept as normal, even though they don't have to be. You know, at some point, it was accepted as normal that there would be no electricity, that we would only have to use a candle if we wanted to have light. But someone dismantled that norm and they forged a new future where all of you now have access to the internet and obviously electricity, because I don't see you sitting in the dark right now and you're sitting in the light. But something we have to understand is that disrupting is not destructing. Disrupting isn't tearing down for the sake of tearing down. It's only tearing down if we're going to build something better than what existed before. And I'm sure most of you are on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, just like me. And if you're on those social media channels, you probably see many people have become experts in tearing down. They've become experts in complaining, experts in saying all the things they think are wrong in the world. But very few people are coming back with solutions. Very few people are talking about how to make something better after they talk about how bad it is. And so disruptors don't just say what's bad, they give a new solution for something to become better. But there's something we have to understand here too, and that is that disruption is not bad. Now, many of us hear the word disruption and we immediately think of getting in trouble at school. We immediately think of our parents being called and us having to have a conference with our teachers because we did something wrong. We caused a disruption. And the first definition of disruption is to cause chaos. And I understand how that could be negative. But look at the second definition of disruption. It's to cause something to be unable to continue in the normal way, or to interrupt the normal progress or activity of something. Now, the only way disruption is bad is if we believe the normal way or the normal progress should never be interrupted. If we believe the way things are or the way they should always be, which I don't think any of us believe. So let me give you a few examples. Now, I have to tell you, Almost all of my speeches are here across America. So the examples I'm going to give you are from the US, but I know that you can find these same kind of examples where you are. So here's my first one. Where would we be today if the disruptors before us had let things continue in the normal way? So here in the US, it was just around 60 years ago that there were separate water fountains for people who had white skin and people who did not have white skin. I'm just 38 years of age, and my father was in first grade. Maybe there you call it class 1. And my father was in first grade when his school became integrated with children who weren't white. So I'm just one generation removed from this reality. But this truth, as uncomfortable as it is, it did not change on accident. It did not change by itself. It changed because people demanded for there to be change, because people marched in the streets and they disrupted for good so that other people would have to listen. Another example here from US is 100 years ago when women in US gained the right to vote alongside the men. And once again, this did not just happen on accident. It did not just happen because someone felt nice that day to give women the right to vote. It happened because women disrupted for good, because they demanded their voices be heard and they demanded equality. And I bet even in India, you can think of many situations where something was unjust, where women were not treated with equal opportunity to men, where people of a different class or a different religion or a different race were not treated equal to others. Maybe you can still think of some of these examples. And I want to remind you, these things do not change on accident. They do not change just because the person in control feels in their heart. Let me say something very plainly to you. No one gives up control on purpose. No one ever gives up control on their own. Almost always, people are giving up control because they're forced to, because it is demanded of them, because the people who lack control join and link arms together and they demand to be treated as equals. Those who have power rarely give it up voluntarily. And let me give you one more fun example since you're all very young. This was the first portable computer in US. And just for fun for you today, I'm sure you guys use kilograms instead of pounds, right? So this portable computer weighed 100 kilograms. It weighed 100 kilograms. So this guy could barely hold this portable computer up. And the internal storage on this portable computer could hold 1% of one iPhone photo. So even though it was amazing technology when it first came out, even the computer you're on today is so much more powerful than this computer. And the reason we have the phones and computers we have today, it's not by accident. It's because so many of us and so many people before us, they disrupted to create the phones and the PCs and the Apples that we're on today. So now let me tell you a few more stories. This is a nursing home in US. And you see the little girl making a sandwich with the older man. Well, I don't know about India, but in US, we have daycares for children and we have nursing homes for older people. But here in this picture, what you're seeing is when they placed a daycare in the middle of a nursing home. And you see what happened? It wasn't just some nice photos like this one. What happened is that the older people actually began to live longer and their memories stayed longer because they were interacting with the children instead of being lonely. And the children, they actually improved their lives too. The children were no longer scared of people that looked different than them. When they saw someone on crutches or wheelchair or with a walker, or someone who couldn't talk the same as them, or who maybe said things that were a little bit different or funny to them, they were still nice and kind because this is who they were seeing every single day. You see, this is just one example of a disruption for good. Someone who saw nursing homes and daycares and said, you know, I think we could do that even better. And so they did. This is a restaurant in US that I went to visit. It's in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And this restaurant does something very unique. So some of you probably like pizza. Well, this is a place that has pizza. But their pizza is just $1 US. And they had a lot of people coming there to buy their pizza. Well, one day a man came to their pizza place and he asked the owner if he could buy a slice of pizza for someone who couldn't afford their own food. And the owner said, sure. And so he gave him a Post-it note. And the man went and put this Post-it note on the wall. And so when a homeless person came into the restaurant, they could grab the Post-it note and they could use the Post-it note to pay for their piece of pizza. Well, this became very popular. You can see the wall behind me is covered in Post-it notes. Actually, now they're just symbolic, because now this little pizza place is giving more than 100 to 200 pieces of pizza every day to homeless people who don't have enough money. You see, for just $1 at lunch, even today, when you went to lunch or you took your lunch at home, if you went to a restaurant, for just $1, you could have helped someone in need. And many of us would choose to do that if we knew there was an opportunity. But this restaurant owner chose to disrupt for good. And because he did, every single day, more than 100 or 200 people have food when otherwise they might go hungry. Now, I'd like to say something that some people think is funny, but I really think it's true. There's no reason that every restaurant in the entire world could not do this same thing. It cost the restaurant owner no money. Actually, it's only been positive for this restaurant owner. He was even on the Ellen show here in the US, if you're familiar with Ellen DeGeneres, who has a very popular show. He's even on her show and made a video on the internet that got more than 1 million views because of what he was doing with his pizza place. So you could even say he's become more famous because of his pizza and the generosity instead of becoming less. And the last story I want to tell you is about a little girl. She was 5 years of age when she learned about the problem of landfills and recycling. You see, she learned in kindergarten, and she came home to her mom and dad and she asked, why don't we recycle? And her mom and dad said, oh, well, we don't have a recycling place here in our neighborhood. So the only option we have is trash. And the little girl said, no, I think we need to recycle because it's better for the earth. And so she said, I'm going to start a recycling business. And she was just 5 years of age. And she made a little flyer on her mommy's computer. And she went to every house in her neighborhood, 75 houses. And she said, you should be recycling to help us save the earth. And I'm going to come pick up your recycling in my business. Well, in just a few weeks' time, when that little girl and her dad got in their mom's car to drive to see what customers they had, she had more than 15 customers. And each one of those customers would pay each month for the recycling to be picked up by Micah, the little girl. After 2 years' time, Micah had done this every week, more than 100 times. And after 2 years' time, Micah had recycled more than 500,000 pounds of trash that would have been in the landfill, instead was recycled. She also had saved enough cash to pay for 1 semester of college or university. This is an example of disrupting for good, even at a young age. So I know some of you today maybe we're going to say, but I'm so young. How can I disrupt for good? Well, I bet you're more than 5 years old. And even a 5-year-old little girl found a way to disrupt for good because she found a truth that was uncomfortable and she did something about it. I want to tell you a little bit about my story now. My life was changed forever when my willingness to dream and take chances outgrew my fear of failing. You see, I was 19 years old in my first year of university when a few things happened in my life that completely changed the way I would do my whole life moving forward. The first thing was I ran a 42-kilometer race called a marathon. And I ran that marathon even though I wasn't well trained. And even though I couldn't walk for 2 days after the race because I didn't do my training, I still completed the 42-mile run. And I realized when I did that my brain was so much stronger than my body. The second thing that happened for me was that I ran for mayor of my town. Now, I don't know if you have mayors in your towns in India or what kind of person is in charge of a certain town. But even though I was just 19 years old, I ran in the election to try and be the top person in charge of my town. And there were 5 candidates. And even though I was just 19 years of age, I got 3rd place out of those 5 candidates to try and be the #1 person in my town. And I realized that young people can do so much more than we even give credit for. And the last thing that happened to me was that I was working at a camp similar to this youth conference, except the young people from across US would come to this camp every summer. And even though I was just 19 years of age, they hired me to be the boss of that camp. And I would have 600 children coming every summer. And my staff was 50 college students, just like me. And most of them were older than me. So these 3 things all happened all my first year of university. And all of a sudden I realized that if I wanted to be the change, the only thing holding me back was me. The only thing limiting me was my mind. The only thing stopping me was my own fear of failing, my own concern about what other people thought of me. And so from that moment on, my life has been full of disruption, almost all day, every day. And one of my most important disruptions is in West Africa, where I met little boys like this boy, Ebenezer, who had been sold into the fishing industry as child slaves, children who were trafficked. And I know that even in India, there's also children who are trafficked. And for just $20 US, this little boy was sold from his mommy and daddy who couldn't afford to feed him because they were so poor. And they sent him to work on this lake. It's the world's largest man-made lake. And I don't want to make anyone feel sad today, but I do want to point out, if you look closely, you can see the tear streak on this little boy's face. And it's because he told me he didn't have any food that day. And he'd already been working around 12 hours when I first met him. So I came home from that first trip to Africa. And first, I need to say something else. The reason I went to Ghana in the first place was because I read a book. And in that book about child trafficking, I was learning about these children. And I was so moved by what I read that I Googled the author's name and I found her phone number and I called her and I asked her if I could go to Ghana with her. And just around 6 months after I first read that book, I showed up in Ghana with the author. I had never been there before and I didn't even know why I was going. But I knew I learned about this thing that was terrible and I needed to understand it better. So that's when I met this boy, Ebenezer. So my wife and I started a charity, an NGO, to help these boys and girls. But we didn't just help the boys and girls. We created a solution that would also help the villages that were buying these boys and girls. Because what we learned was that the people who owned the children were often as poor as the families who sent the children. They were also just barely surviving. And so we taught them how to do cage fishing or aquaculture. And by doing this cage fishing, you can see these beautiful tilapia here. By doing this cage fishing and aquaculture, we actually taught the villages how to make more money without using the children than when they used the children. And so because of that, 17 villages were able to make more money for their own families. One of these villages actually used their profits to build a school because their own children had never been able to attend school. And then because now they were making more money, they voluntarily released these slave children to go back to their families. Almost 200 children now who have returned to their families and are now attending school for the first time. Some of these children were as old as you, and they had never been to class 1 or kindergarten or KG. I don't know what you call it in India, but they had never even been to class 1, and they were 15, 17, even 20, almost 20 years old. And so they're going back to school for the first time, and they're learning how to be mechanics, and they're learning how to be electricians, and they're learning so that they can become the future of Ghana. So I want to talk a little bit now about your future, because India and the world need you to become a disruptor. India and the world need you to become a disruptor for good. And I'm going to teach you exactly how you can become a disruptor now. There are 3 steps to becoming a disruptor. If you follow these steps, anybody, anywhere can become a disruptor for good. The first step is that you have to make a commitment. And this means that you have to look around your town and your village. You have to look around your country. You have to look around your school. You have to look around the world. And you have to find those truths that make you uncomfortable. You have to find those things that when you see them, you know they're wrong. When you see them, you know they shouldn't be the way they are. When you see them, you know they could be better. Sometimes this is technology. Sometimes this is people. Sometimes this is education. Sometimes this is the environment or business or something. But first, you have to make a commitment that when you see something in the world that you know should be different, that you are going to do something about it. That you're not just going to wait for someone else. You're not going to say, why doesn't someone do something? You're going to say, why not me as the person to do something? You're not going to wait until you reach a certain age or get a certain amount of money in your bank. It doesn't take a lot of money or a certain age to make a change. It takes purpose and intentionality. Even at your age today, you're plenty old to start making changes when you find truths that are uncomfortable. After you make this commitment, you have to make an action plan. And I like to say it like this: when I find a truth that makes me uncomfortable, even if it's big or if it's small, what is something I can do today, tomorrow, next week, and next month to turn this truth into a better truth? So my action plan is, what can I do today? What can I do tomorrow? What can I do next week? And what can I do next month? Now, we all know, because the timing of today, that next month is also next week. So maybe you look at April as well as March. But making these disruptions for good, they start very, very small. You don't have to do this huge, big thing. Maybe it means just helping one person. Maybe it means just smiling at one person that everyone else bullies. Maybe it means that person on the street that you've always passed by and they always look so sad. instead of walking on the other side of the street. Maybe it means you take your lunch and you sit on the curb and you share a meal with them and you listen to their story and you learn about their life and their family and you learn about what makes them them. And maybe you remember that they are human just like you are and that you have more in common than you have different. Maybe it's volunteering at a local school. I don't know what it is for you, but I know that all of us have these uncomfortable truths. And the last part, after we've made a commitment and after we've created our action plan, they persist to transformation. Persistence is the hardest part of disruption because disruption doesn't just happen in one day. Disruption doesn't just happen in 3 days. It doesn't just happen in 5 days or 1 week. It happens day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. The one thing that is true about every person I've ever met who became a disruptor was that they persisted and persisted and persisted. You know, the person who creates a great invention fails hundreds of times before they succeed. But if they had quit just one time too early, we would never have that invention that they gave us today. We would never have that thing that made our lives better or easier, that brought us joy or made us laugh, that movie or that song or that show or that restaurant. We would never have many of those things if it were not for persistence. So now I want to make myself available to questions. I think they said you could drop your questions in the chat, and then whoever chooses those questions can read them to me, and I'm happy to answer questions and to try and be helpful as you consider how you might be a disruptor for good in your own community, in your own school, in India, and even across the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your words of wisdom. Since we have a lot of time left, we can now move on to the Q&A session. So delegates, if you have any questions, please address them in the chat box. Are there any questions?
Ayushi, Rachana has raised her hand.
Right. So Rachna, you can address your question. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, good evening, ma'am. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Can you give some insights for those who have yet to start a new startup in a biotechnological aspects?
Yeah, certainly. I think almost every new business is created because there's an uncomfortable truth about the businesses that exist right now. I'm actually an entrepreneur as well here in the US, and I've started around 4 companies. And every company we create is solving a problem for our customers. So if you're going to create a biotech startup, you have to be very clear on what problem it is you're solving. So like right now with COVID-19, we know these companies are making vaccines. Well, there was a very clear problem that they were solving. And you know, 1 year ago, that problem didn't exist. No one even knew the name COVID-19 just 1 year ago. So those biotech companies, they didn't have a solution because there was no problem. But as soon as that new problem came, they were able to quickly put all of their energy and resources into a solution. And so what I would say is first, be very, very clear about the problem you're solving and make sure there's not already somebody solving that problem better than you. And there's not already somebody solving that problem who has more experience and more years ahead of you, because then you're going to be competing with someone whose company is already strong. So make sure the problem you're solving is new, or make sure you're solving an old problem in a new way. The problem of child trafficking in Ghana was not new, but the way we solved it was new. And that's why we were able to be successful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Pranav has also raised his hand. So Pranav, you can unmute yourself and ask the question.
Hi, sir. Good evening.
Good evening.
So my question is, what are the most important aspects of an NGO that it must focus on to grow?
Great question. So the most important thing about an NGO, and I hope I can say this in a way that makes the most sense to all of you. So please, if the way I say it doesn't make sense, please ask me to say it a different way. But the most important thing for an NGO is that we create solutions that are sustainable and that work us out of a job. And what I mean by that is that many NGOs, it's like they want to hold on to their power or their control. And so they don't want to hand it over to the very people they serve. And when they do that, they're not really solving the problem permanently. If you look at so many solutions, let me give an example. Let's say there's people in India, just like in US, who don't have food to eat. And so every day they can go to a place, maybe in US, we would call it a soup kitchen, where they can take some food and they make sure that they don't starve. Well, that's fine. And I'm glad that they're giving those people food. But what if we made an investment in creating jobs for the very people who don't have the food? So then they could buy their own food instead of us having to feed them every day. I'm sure you've heard the example. If you give a man a fish, he can eat for one day, but if you teach a man to fish, he can feed himself the rest of his life. So many of our NGOs are just giving a man a fish instead of teaching a man to fish. And so I would say first, you need to make sure your solution is empowering that generation, the people who are suffering. You're empowering them to become the leaders of that organization. Like now in Ghana, I don't even have any US staff in Ghana. It's all completely Ghanaian run, because for 10 years, we've made investment in the Ghanaian people, and we've taught those people how to be leaders and how to run the organization, because I'm not Ghanaian, just like I'm not Indian. And so why would I think I could come to India and tell you how to run your country or tell you how to solve a problem? What I could do is bring a solution and some funding. And then I could bring my creative energy to create the next generation of leaders. So I would say that's the first thing. The second thing I would say, which won't be as long of an answer, you obviously have to have funds to run an NGO. And the best way to get funds is by telling a good story. And when I say telling a good story, I mean, you have to be able to sit with someone like I sat with you today, and you have to be able to simply explain the problem and why your solution is better and really, truly helpful. And when you can tell someone the problem, and when you can tell someone your solution, and when you can tell someone how their donation is going to make a real difference in the life of a person, or in the life of a child, or in the life of a community, then usually it's easy to get those people to donate to your cause, because you've shown them a problem, you've sold them a solution, and you've invited them to join you in being part of the solution, and invited them to be a partner as you do your good work. So I hope that's helpful.
Okay, so thank you. Thank you very much. Yeah.
So Aditya and Tina have asked, how can they connect with you, and like if they want to join you in Ghana or with your companies, or if like they want to have a discussion over their NGOs?
Yeah, so I'm going to put the website for Mercy Project onto the chat. So that's our website, and we have a contact form on there. So if somebody wants to learn more about the work we're doing or contact me, they can do that. Just for sake of time, I do ask that if someone's going to contact me through that form, if you'll just be very clear in your email about your specific questions, and maybe give me 2 or 3 specific questions you're trying to solve that you're struggling with, instead of, saying something general like, can you help me raise funds, or something like that, right? Or saying, how do I start an NGO? Like, be as clear as you can in your question, and then I'll be able to be as clear as I can in my answer. Just for sake of time, I wouldn't be able to have 20 emails back and forth with, 75 people or something. So if you want to send me a mail through that website, you can do that, but please be as specific as possible with your questions, and then be patient with me as I work to answer your questions. So I hope that's helpful.
Right, sir. So we still have some time left. Does anyone else have any questions? So I can ask one myself, sir. Regarding the Mercy project that you are running, what is it one thing that motivates you to work for it every single day? And what is that one thing you're doing to keep this very active and very efficient every single day?
Yeah, good question. I think that what keeps me motivated is knowing that the work that I'm doing is going to have generational impact. So if one of you helps a child go to school that wasn't able to afford their school fees, what you have to remember is you're not just helping that child. One day that child is going to have children. And because that person got a chance for school fees, now you might have the chance for that person's children and their children and their children and their children to be able to go to school. Because the research tells us most people attain the same level of education as their parents. And so when we can help someone break that cycle, when their parents dropped out in class 1 or class 2 or whatever you would call primary in India, and now we help a child go beyond that point, the chances of their children going on that point, beyond that point, are very, very high. And it's not just for them. So you're going to grow old just like me, and we're going to die. And what we have to believe is that the work that we do today to impact others is going to live past our lives. And I know that when we post a video on Facebook or TikTok, or when we do a tweet, or we cook some food with our friends, or we watch a movie that we like, those things are fun, but those things will never live past our lives. Those things will never go beyond the very single moment that we're in. And so we have to make a decision that we want our lives to go past just a single moment. And we want our lives, even if the person doesn't know our name, our lives have the chance to impact generations of Indian children who might never know us, but whose lives will be better because we chose to work for something bigger than ourselves. And so that's what I believe. And one of those children that you help go to school, maybe it's their grandchildren that come up with the solution for COVID-19. Maybe it's their grandchildren that become the next president or prime minister of India. Maybe it's their grandchildren that write a book that becomes famous. We don't know what anyone's life will do, but we know that when people have opportunities, they do great things. And so I think our job is to look around us and find those places where people don't have opportunities, and to give them as many chances at success as we possibly can.
Right, so that's a very wholesome thought process behind running a nonprofit organization. So let's very quickly take one more question from Priya Maurya. So how did you come up with the very idea of being a disruptor? This is what she asked.
Yeah, that's great. So for me, I have always been a disruptor, but I never had that word for it. And when I was a kid, actually, I was even getting in a lot of trouble for my disruptions. And it wasn't always good disruptions. Sometimes I was not making good choices, and my teachers were really staying on me very strong. And but as I grew older and I started making these decisions, I realized that disruption could be used for good, and that it was a powerful force for good. And so I started looking around for other examples, and I stumbled across this word, disruption. And it was only used for business. It wasn't really used outside of business. And so then I began wondering, what if we took it outside of business and we turned it into a question around doing good with our disruption? And so that's what led to my book called Disrupting for Good. And then I actually have a new book that's coming out in June called A Billion Hours of Good, which is an invitation for each person in the world to give just 1% of their day, which is 14 minutes, to doing good. And then we're going to add up all of those little 14 minutes, and it's going to add up to 1 billion hours of good, which is more than 114,000 years worth of doing good, which is pretty amazing. That together, none of us could do that, but all collectively, we would be able to do that much good in the world.
Thank you, sir. Pranav, we can take up your question if you can be like a little quick with it.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ayushi. So my another question is, sir, can you please share with us what exactly was the very first version of the story that you conveyed to the donors while fundraising for your NGO?
Yeah, so this is an interesting question because I didn't fully have the solution at the time that I told the story, right? I was saying, hey, I found this problem and it's really bothering me and I'm going to do something about it. And I'm willing to commit my own time and energy and some of my own cash to this problem, but I need more cash. And I need more cash because I have to understand what the problem is so that I can come up with a solution. And I'm going to keep you informed the whole journey of what I'm coming up with the solution, everything I'm learning. I'm going to treat you as a stakeholder. Even though you're not investing in a company with a monetary return, you are investing in an NGO. You are investing in me as a person of solutions. And so I'm going to give you reports just like if this was a financial business that you were investing in. And I'm going to show you what I'm doing with your money to find this solution. And then as soon as I found the solution and learned the new things, I just started going back to them and showing them what I was learning and showing them what I was thinking and showing them the work that I was doing and the solutions I was coming up with. And so that story, it changed over time. It became more compelling and more complete over time. But the story starts with, there's a problem, no one is solving it, and I'm willing to do what it takes to solve it. And that's what those first donors donated to. And then they donated more and more and more as they saw my solution was going to work.
Thank you so much, sir. It was great having you. We really appreciate the time you've given us to encourage us. And we really appreciate that now we are able to, we'll be able to confront our uncomfortable truths only to make a better one out of it. And this is how we've come to the end of the session. We're already running out of time. So now moving on to the next session, which is the Ignite Talk, I would like to handle it over to our next host, Mr. Abhishek.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir.
Welcome. Thank you guys very much. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Bye.
Yes. I'm audible, right?
Yes, Abhishek.
Yes. Okay. So, as very rightly said by the American business magnate, Mr. Steve Jobs, the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. Hello, my dear friends. I'm Abhishek, member of Akanksha Charitable Trust, and I will be hosting this session of Ignite Talk. Hope you guys are enjoying the sessions, right? So with the same zeal, now I am providing the opportunity to two of our selected delegates to share their experiences, stories, or ideas with us. As the name of the session says, it's the Ignite Talk, meant for motivating the young budding minds like us. Dear delegates, please note that there will not be any Q&A in this session. Speakers will share their mail ID at the end of their talk, and you can directly contact them over their mail. Okay, so without wasting further time, I'd like to call upon our first delegate speaker, Mr. Selvamani Ramanathan. founder and CEO, Nishrita Foundation. Nishrita Foundation basically works for the specially abled people. Mr. Silvamani was inspired to work for them at an early age as his parents were specially abled. He grew up watching how much his dear parents were struggled to make ends meet and how society outstrained them. Those incidents lit a fuel in him to work for such people, and he established this organization. He goes around colleges and institutions to promote sign language. For his great works, he has been honored with Kamavira Chakra Award in the year 2020. He is also an award-winning author of a book focused on poetry. Currently, he is working as HR in Myra Technologies. It's our great pleasure, privilege to have you in NYC 2021, Mr. Silvamani. So now, over to you, Mr. Silvamani.
Thank you so much, Abhishek, for the beautiful words. And yeah, so far I've been, collecting a lot of things spoke by other delegates. It was great pleasure to hear everyone out. And yeah, very good evening to everyone. I'm Silvamani. So I'm 24 years old, and yeah, like mentioned, I'm running an NGO, a small cafe, and I'm an author working as an HR also. So to come back from my journey in the past, I failed 10th. So it took a lot of effort for me to clear 10 because I know I was interested in education a bit before then. And when I really thought, okay, fine, I'll have to clear this education because I need to go ahead with my career or future, I somehow got the motivation to complete my 10th with around 40%. And then I got some uphold, okay, fine, now I need to study because my parents are this way. They both are disabled. They can't hear or speak. I can't be this way. So then I joined the Pew College and then started my studies over there. So eventually I didn't know that my turn of life would go this way, that I would get distinction in my Pew level, and then I would come out with the coloring numbers and everything. And that changed my whole life ahead because my principal, Shamala Jogaya, who was completely mentoring me since the day one I joined the college, she told, you have the capability, your parents are this way, I'll give you all the strength that you need, you can keep doing it. And trust me, a person who failed 10th went on to become a regional semi-finalist in a Young Chef London competition. He was competing with many best people out there, and then that gave me confidence that okay, there is something in me that I can explore. So my parents are hearing impaired, and I've always been quite alone, and whenever I feel a bit down, I start writing. I pen down my emotions. My emotions that I pen down, I have completely got into a book called Leaping into Thoughts. And the book has given me a real new phase of life. World Literary Forum of Human Rights have named me as International Ambassador of Peace. So that's giving me an ambition to promote peace among people and everyone. That happened. I wrote my book at the age of 18, and then I started this NGO at the age of 20. And since then, we're completely working on things that can develop the situation for hearing impaired people. When I talk about NGO, why this NGO works for? So amount of 2 million people in India are hearing impaired, and number of dropouts among them is 71%. So you see the number very, very clearly that the education is not reaching out to them, because most of the cases that I have heard personally, the parents will be like, he doesn't hear, he can't speak, why do I need to send him to an awesome school, because he's not going to anywhere mingle him, let him stay at home. And that has really put them into a cocoon that they are not able to come out. We in Nishrita Foundation are emphasizing on 3 E's. We want to educate, we want to employ them, we will empower them. Simple logic. So for now, we didn't have sufficient funds. We have 44 interns who are working in different teams, collectively working on different ideas, how to fundraise, how to keep our show going on. And this has kept me igniting each and every day that I'm moving. Okay, fine, I failed then. Today, I don't want to turn back, but let me make a world better place for everyone. When I see my disabled parents, I see God and say that, okay, fine, you trusted me, right? I'll take care of them. Let me do my bit to the society also, looking after them. So this journey for me has definitely been special because, I fell, I woke, I saw a lot of new things. and I completed BHM, DHM, DHRM, 3 degrees, and I'm still continuing. I've got so many records and everything. But the only thing that I want to come out come out on this platform, National Youth Conferences, if you feel that you're not up to that standard, don't even think that is the last stage of you, because if you don't explore your cards, there is the other person in you who we will miss out to see. So when you have something in yourself, if you have someone whom you trust over, just go to them, convey your problems. There will definitely be a solution, because the word impossible itself says I am possible, right? So when you have some problems going in your head, don't keep it to yourself, convey it out, and definitely you are the best person out there. So to ignite, if you're seeing failures, I had the disabled parents who couldn't motivate me more because they couldn't convey most of the things, because I couldn't get most of the things what they wanted to say. But when this journey came so far, I realized there are people who really need mentorship and so on. So I always want to, support people and help them understand how crucial it is for them to, take up education, keep themselves going on. And if at all someone from this National Youth Conference seeing me out there on YouTube or anyone out there, I would definitely be happy for you to come back to me and tell, okay, Salva, let's collaboratively work on understanding how we can make society a better place for hearing impaired. I will be the best person to give you a huge shout out, because that's not the thing that I'm working for since day one. So I would definitely want to collaborate with Akanksha Charitable Trust also to understand how we can get better with the society, because every small bit that I am trying to do, I don't know if I could make a huge impact. But tomorrow when someone talks about Nishrita Foundation, that Nishrita Foundation should say that it made 1% difference to the society that is happy today. So let us all collaboratively work, because SDG, that's something sustainable development goal. I'm working heavily on the quality education part. So now we're working on a startup, me and few of my friends. I don't know how many of you have heard about Urban Company. That's a online marketplace. So we are trying to cultivate an online marketplace with only hearing impaired people to ensure that we increase the employment rate among the regular crowd and bring all of them to the mainstream and make them employee ready. So this is my bit of thought that I've completely been working upon, and I hope that I reach out to a new set of crowd. And this is something that I really was collectively recording out and wanted to talk to people. So if you failed and think you're not up to the market, don't ever give up. That's a new beginning that we are looking into you. And I'm definitely here to listen out to you. I'm going to share you my contact details and email ID. I'm always there to hear the problems out. And to come back to National Youth Conference, thank you for believing in me first, because it is definitely, you said, among 300 applicants, taking out the 90 best delegates and taking best 2 delegates to talk is really a matter of appreciation for me, that I've come so far with something that really matters to the people out there in the society. So thanks for each and every member of Akanksha. You've done a great job, and thanks for taking your time to invite me and get me talking over here. I'm so happy that I could push my few words so that I could ignite someone's future out there. So I'm really delighted and thankful to all of you.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Selvamani, for your inspiring words. As you said, I am in impossible. Yes, it's possible. That is possible in impossible, right? Yes. So, yeah, moving on.
Well, if I have other 2-3 want to hear from people if they have any questions. If someone has any question for next 2-3 minutes, if I have, I would want to hear.
Yeah. Just one question.
If I out of time, I'm fine to go.
Yeah, just one question. Okay, just one question I can take up. If there's anyone, yeah, of course. Please raise your hand if anyone have any queries or. Okay.
Selvamani, you can just drop your number ready here so that people can contact you.
If not, fine. Akanksha will test. I want. Yeah, sure. But
okay.
Yeah, one thing to Akanksha Charitable Trust is just give me an. Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yeah. Tell me.
Yes, you are clear.
Abhishek?
Yes, yes, yes,
Yeah.
Salomani. You are.
So I just want 1 hour of your team with all the members with Akanksha Charitable Trust. I want to teach all of you sign language. It's a real beautiful language, and I want everyone to learn it because it's a very beautiful language to communicate.
Yeah.
Let us also to all the people who are watching YouTube, if someone is speaking on sign language in a street or local road, please don't stare at them. They're very normal people. Don't embarrass them.
Yeah.
They're very pretty cool to go. Just if you don't know, just walk away, or if you want to talk to them, please go do. But don't stare at them. That's the only request I want to make to everyone out there.
Yes, yes, yes. Okay, okay. Thank you, Salomani.
Okay, Pranav has
Yes.
raised his hand.
Yeah,
Pranav, go
Pranav.
ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, Silva Mani.
Yeah, hi.
Your journey has been so amazing. And my question to you is, how many members do you have in your organization, and how did they join your organization?
So, see, I myself interview people because I feel that when I pick someone, I need the authentic people to ideally work for my cause. So, apart
Yeah.
from that, I have senior steering committee compromising of various professors, college professors, and many other senior people who are there in the public sector. We have a panel of people. Apart from that, we have interns who are working in different teams and understanding how we can make this better. So it's like around 44 team sites. So yeah.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, Pranav. Thank
Yeah.
you,
Thank you,
Salomani.
Abhishek. Thank you, Abhishek, for
Yes,
giving me
thank you,
time.
thank you. And moving on, now I'd like to call upon Miss Alpana Khandelwal. Miss Alpana Khandelwal is a social worker with a specialization in human resources. She is currently working with the government of Rajasthan in Yuva Prerak scheme. Other than this, she has also worked with Restless Development in MTV Nishad project and have been positioned as board member in a youth-based organization named All India Welfare Society. Currently, she is also running a project for socio-economic development under Peace First organization. It's our great pleasure to have such an eminent delegate with us. Now, I would like to request Miss Alpana to deliver her talk. Over to you, Miss Alpana.
Uh, Hello everyone, I'm Alpana Khandelwal. I'm really glad to be part of this youth conference organized by Akansha Charitable Trust. Thank you so much for selecting me as a delegate to talk over there. And I'm a social worker. I have done my master's in social work with a specialization in human resources and labor laws. And I am also a CSR professional. I have done my CSR professional course a few years back, and since then I have been working as a social worker. So and other than that, I am working with the government of Rajasthan under Yuva Prerak, in which I'm working as a bridge between the rural people and the government schemes, because in rural area people are not aware about the schemes which are being implemented by the government for them. And it is actually the main problem in rural area is that they won't be able to connect with the government properly. So my work is basically as a bridge between them, so that they can get benefit of the scheme which actually made the government for them. And I'm also the board member of All India Welfare Society. It's a youth based organization. Like all the youth over there are from different fields, and we work as a team for the welfare, and we work like for child welfare, for women empowerment, women education, etc. I also worked as a team manager for women entrepreneurship program of Ministry of Women and Child Development. And over there, I've been handling 35 villages of Sanganer area, Jaipur. And my work over there was to basically connect the women's with the rural area women's with the market, so that they can get better opportunities and they can become a entrepreneur. And other than that, I've been also working for the different projects of government and other organizations. And it's a good thing. Like I'm actually excited to be a part of this youth conference, because uh, in current scenario, youth engagement in such type of activities is very important. I believe so. So thank you so much for making me the part of this, as a like selecting me for this conference and making me the part of this conference. Thank you so much.
Yes, yes. Thank you, Alpana Khandelwal. So, as there is still some more time, you can ask, we can have interaction with Alpana.
Yeah.
Please raise your hand if anyone have any questions, or yeah. Priya, yeah, you can go on.
Ma'am, as you said that you have completed your master's in social work.
Yes.
Ma'am, here we are brought up in such families who tend to like condition us to focus on our own life, on our own careers. And when we tend to question them about broader social issues, and so means we are not encouraged to even question those things. And if we want to pursue our masters in social work, how do we convince our family first for that?
Actually, in India, there is a big problem that everyone thinks social work is just a like in Hindi, I would say Samaj Karya. Anybody can do that. There is a lack of information or lack of education for the people. Like there is a proper education for social work. So for that thing, you can convince them that in social work also we have a proper career, not only in NGOs. Social workers also works in big organizations, big companies, and in different works like CSR work. As a CSR, I'm also a CSR professional. So as a CSR, I can work anywhere. But as a social worker in MSW in HR specialization, HR is basically as a MBHR, but it's like MSW HR can work as a labor inspector also. So you can convince them like it's not like you need to go to the field only. No, we also have office work. We also have good opportunities in big companies, so that like parents will get to know that it's not like you have to carry a bag and you have to go to rural area and have to work. No, it's not like that.
But we, but like how to like how to
Sorry.
like they are sort of more concerned about our careers, and they want us to work in fixed domains like being a teacher or being in the government. Like social service is not a thing for them.
Actually, like it's a big problem. Like people don't know that that social work field also like in government sector we can also work as a social workers. Government
Yes.
sector also gives us opportunities to work, and you can get specialized. It's not like you can work any kind of social work. Social workers can be medical social workers. You can be like women and child specialization in a specific field you can work. And you don't have to like go to any field. You just need to tell them that people are also working like that. Give them examples, give them good examples. There are a lot of people who are working like that, so you can give them examples. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay, thank you, Priyal. And there is one question from Apeksha. She just a second. Let me read out her question.
Yeah.
Did you start working for? Are you working for tribal people, tribal area people? She is asking, are you working on tribal area people?
No,
And
currently I'm not working for tribal area people.
yeah, okay. So
Yeah.
Ma'am, please share your mail ID or contact details on the drop chat box. Yes.
Yeah, sure. I'll share.
Yes. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
So thanks a lot, Miss Alpana, for sharing your views or experiences with us. So ladies and gentlemen, we have come to an end and it's time to wrap up the session. I once again wholeheartedly thank Mr. Selomani Ramanathan and Miss Alpana Kandelwal on behalf of Team NOSC 2021. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. So moving on, Pranita, please take over the session.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm back again. Hi, guys. So I'll again ask you all to enable your videos. All of you, please enable your videos. Yeah. So you all might have already joined your respective WhatsApp groups, right? And also might have got a voice message regarding what hackathon is all about, why are we doing it. So for those who do not have any idea about it, you already might have got a bit of idea about the same, right? Because you're gonna work for the same for tomorrow's event, to specify. So in that I had like a thing was mentioned. So why have we created a group just to ensure that you guys are speaking with each other. So shall we just have an activity to check how well you guys know each other, sort of thing? Okay, I'll call Nimra Ahmed. Yeah, I saw your expression actually. Hello. So, how are you doing? Yeah, unmute yourself.
I'm
We can
good.
speak.
I'm good. Thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good too. So, which group are you in? Like,
Wait,
which group are you working in?
there's a disturbance. I'll just.
Yeah, sure. No, by that time, we shall call someone else. Anybody willing to speak? Anybody willing to come over and speak? Can definitely raise your hands or unmute yourself directly.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yeah, Nirma is back. Nimra,
Nimra.
sorry,
It's
Nimra.
okay.
Okay, so which group are you in, Nimra?
Group number 1.
Oh, first call, first group. Good. So who are your teammates? Do you remember their names?
Actually, all of them have different username. Like one was Universe. So I don't
No,
know.
you might have interacted with your teammates in the
Yeah.
WhatsApp group, right?
Yeah, I have interacted, but their names were very different. Like
Okay.
their real names were not present in the group. I'll just check once.
No issues. Just this is just a networking sort of thing, right?
Okay, one
So
was
nothing official.
Kavya.
Yeah.
And one was Universe. Then the name was Universe.
Okay.
Then there was Varsha. And there is Gattim Sarkar.
Okay. So how well do you know? Like, I don't want to speak about hackathon things and all because we have got a complete day, complete event for the same. So how well did you speak with each other, or how did you like your team? If yes, how was it?
Okay, firstly, everybody was like a little shy in interacting because they didn't know what to do. So then we had a couple of questions and we asked that what we're supposed to do, what is our topic. Then we got a topic, it was poverty. So we had a lot of ideas on what we wanted to do. We had different ideas. First, we thought we'll do a business idea. Then we thought we'll do an NGO idea. But then we ended up on an NGO.